Hey guys, welcome to Pocket Saga. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Ash settles down with Serena after becoming world champion, part 2. This story is Settling Down by Amourshipping. Before starting, if you are interested in Pokemon fanfictions, you can consider subscribing this channel and like this video, that will help a lot. Now let's dive in. A sharp wind blew on Serena's hair in the chill of the night, as the smoke began to clear. Serena took quick, short breaths, hoping and praying Delphox was okay. 20,000 people watched attentively, as the smoke disappeared and everyone discovered both Pokemon were still standing. They were looking quite rugged though, and no one was sure if they could even muster another attack. Then Delphox suddenly fell to her knees. Everyone gasped, including Serena. But then, Delphox turned round to Serena and smiled. Serena smiled back and instantly had full faith in her. Venusaur observed Delphox and was confident that it had won the battle. Shauna knew a close-range attack would be too dangerous at this point, so quickly pounced and told Venusaur to use Vine Whip. Serena didn't react and just closed her eyes. Venusaur used its last bit of energy and unleashed the Vine Whip. It just had to hit its mark. Shauna was gambling everything on it. But Serena still did nothing and just kept her eyes shut, as if she was waiting for something. Delphox followed suit and didn't move an inch and let it get closer and closer, until she smirked and dodged it at the last second, spinning a flame wheel around it. The crowd oohed. Not only was Serena being tactical, she was also putting on a show here. Ash smirked and chuckled a little to himself. It was as if he knew exactly what Serena was doing. "Now," cried Serena, as she opened her eyes up again. As she continued to spin, Delphox released an unexpected flamethrower which charred the vines into cinders and roasted Venusaur to a crisp. Unfortunately, it had a consequence though, as Delphox landed awkwardly on her knee and was struggling to get back up. Meanwhile, Venusaur just stood its ground for a good minute or so and stared at Delphox, with its big bulbous eyes. But then its eyes began to get smaller and its entire body gave way, to the surprise of everyone, and it helplessly remained motionless. Delphox was starting to wobble at the same time too. The referee wasn't sure how to call it, as neither had actually fainted yet, but then a tremendous thud thundered around the stadium. Venusaur had fallen. It could not stand any longer. And it was over. The referee hesitated a little, having to make such a big call on such a big stage, but promptly decided there was no possible way Venusaur could continue, and so he shouted, "Venusaur is unable to battle, which means the winner is performer Serena." Shauna fell to her knees and hung her head in despair. Pierre quickly took the limelight and swayed onto the stage. "And that's that, folks. We have a winner." He walked over to a shell-shocked Serena and raised her lifeless arm into the air. "May I present to you, your very first Kanto Queen, Serena," he shouted, emphatically. Everyone leapt from their seats and filled the entire stadium with roaring cheers and applause. Serena froze and gulped. All she could move was her eyeballs, as she looked around at all 20,000 people, open-mouthed. They were all cheering for her and they absolutely loved her. She just didn't know how to react, always being quite an introverted girl at heart. This is what she'd always wanted, but now it was actually happening. She was clamming up a little and retreating within herself. And then she heard someone shouting something. It somehow overpowered the rest of the noise in her head and blocked everything else out. She looked further up the stands and caught sight of the love of her life. Ash had his hands cupped over his mouth and was shouting at the very top of his lungs how proud he was of her. Serena's face slowly unlocked from its overwhelmed state and crinkled into a joyous, wide smile, so bright it dazzled even up to the higher end of the stadium. Then she suddenly laughed, not believing what was actually happening. She kept her eyes on Ash the whole time and started to find the confidence to react properly to what had just happened. Serena waved her hands about for her fans and embraced the moment to its full potential. She could really enjoy it now, and she even surprised herself with how much she was celebrating it. Fireworks erupted from the stage and made Serena jump a little, but she just laughed at that too and then decided to take a bow for everyone. But then her happiness was cut short a little, when she heard Shauna sobbing faintly behind her. Serena felt bad. She had forgotten all about Shauna for a second. Serena had been there before in Hoenn, so she knew exactly how she must be feeling. She stopped waving and rushed over to her. Then she put a comforting arm around her and lowered herself down to talk to her. "I'm sorry, Shauna," she said. Shauna sniffled and raised her head a little. Sorry. Don't be sorry, Serena. You deserve this. This is your moment. Don't worry about me. I know, but I still want to make sure you're okay. You're still my friend. Thank you, Serena. Tears ran down Shauna's cheeks and onto the stage floor. I know exactly how you must be feeling. But I promise you, it will all be alright. This isn't the end, Shauna. Your time will come, okay? Oh, okay. Serena gently wiped her tears away with her thumb. Just remember you're still an amazing performer and you've definitely got more to give. And you really gave it your all tonight. Those cheers aren't just for me. So, come on. Take a bow for your fans. Serena got up and extended her head. Friends to the end, right? Shauna looked up at her and tried to crack a smile. She took her hand and stood up with Serena's support. The audience immediately responded and gave her a standing ovation. Shauna was surprised they were even bothering to clap for her. She lost. But they still appreciated how good she was too. Serena raised Shauna's arms sportingly and joined in with the cheers. Even though she was devastated, Shauna realized it wasn't the end of the world and her smile soon returned. Friends to the end, she repeated and nodded determinedly. Ah, well that is very nice to see, said Pierre. Please give it up for your runner-up, Shauna. The audience gave her another round of applause. Okay, thank you everyone, now for the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to crown your new queen. Over to you, Aria. To everyone's surprise, the former Kalo's queen, Aria entered the stage with a jewel-encrusted tiara in her hands. No one had any idea she was going to make an appearance. The whole stadium erupted again, with half the audience in hysterics that the great Aria was here, including Serena herself. She had already met Aria of course, but to be presented with the tiara from her, really was a dream come true. Aria grinned at her. Congratulations, Serena. I always knew you were one to watch. Thank you, Aria. You don't know how much this means to me. Oh, I think I do. I've been exactly where you are now, remember? Drink it all in, Serena. This is really happening. You're a queen. And now it's time for your coronation. Serena nodded and couldn't stop smiling, as she bent her knees in curtsy and Aria lowered the tiara onto her head. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present your first ever Kanto queen, Serena, announced Pierre. More fireworks sparked off and photographers came flurrying in to get a piece of the new hot sensation. Serena was pretty overwhelmed by it all, but decided to just try and enjoy it. Like she said to Ash before, not everyone wins it all. Serena thought she better get used to it and shyly posed for pictures. She never really wanted all the fame, but it seemed to come hand in hand with success in the Pokemon world. Ash and the gang stood up and hugged each other in jubilant celebration. Grace was in tears and Ash was elated with joy, as they jumped up and down together. Pierre cleared his throat and tried to speak again over the rowdy crowd. Okay. That about wraps up the ceremony. Do you have any parting words, Serena? He pointed the microphone over at Serena. She hadn't prepared any kind of speech and felt a little stage fright creep over her, as thousands of eager eyes awaited a word from their new queen. She laughed nervously. Serena's eyes darted around, trying to find the right words, and then she saw Ash in the corner of her eye, encouraging her to speak. She smiled and sighed lovingly, then bravely took the microphone. Yes. I do. Thank you so much to everyone who supported me. My magnificent Pokemon, Delphox, Pancham and Sylveon. My lovely friends, Bonnie, Clemont, Brock and Olivia over there. She pointed over at them. And an even bigger thanks to my mama up there too, for always believing in me and allowing me to become who I wanted to be. I love you, mama. Grace shaped her hands into a love heart and blew kisses at her. And words cannot describe how lucky I am to have the man standing next to her. Ash's heart skipped a beat. He knew straight away what she was going to say next. He tipped his hat down and struggled to control his emotions. The photographers immediately turned their attention to him and tried to get a few pictures of him too, still being quite famous from his big league win not so long ago. Ash, continued Serena, I couldn't have done any of this without you. You are my rock, my reason to keep going and chase my dreams, and the most wonderful, beautiful human being. Merci, Ash. She blew him a kiss, but he didn't see it, with his head still being down. Everyone looked over at Ash and whopped for him. Ash was a little reserved to all the attention though and kept his hat down. But underneath it, he was an absolute mess and trying not to cry. Serena knew him all too well and didn't need to see his face to know he was touched by her words. She smiled and paused for a bit before continuing. And finally, I'd just like to say thank you to the fans. I hope I can be an inspiration to future performers in Kanto and all across the world. But in the meantime, I am honored to be your queen. She handed the microphone back, bowed and waved goodnight. Then Serena left the stage and headed back to the dressing room, laughing to herself the whole way there. She put her head in her hands and still couldn't believe it. As she walked into the dressing room, all the girls, including Miette, stood and clapped for her. Serena thanked them and sat down to get a breather and process it all. Shauna came in shortly after and looked a little happier now. Serena hoped that the loss wouldn't affect her too much and told her she would always be there if she needed her. Shauna appreciated it, but understandably didn't stay long and left. It was getting pretty late now, so once everyone collected their things, all the performers left, with Serena being the last one out. As she closed the dressing room door and turned around, her heart pounded at the sound of a voice she wasn't expecting. Queen Serena. Congratulations, said Ash, in a slow deep voice that made Serena melt. He was leant against the wall and seemed to have been waiting for her for a while. Oh, hey, Ash, thank you. Ash just smiled and opened his arms up. Hug? He asked. Serena smiled warmly back at him and nodded. She'd never turn him down. Ash wrapped his arms around her and Serena wasted no time getting as tight a grip on him as she could. Ash rubbed her back soothingly. You know, you really are the most amazing person I know, Rena. To do what you just did is quite something. And I can only keep repeating how proud I am. You truly deserve this after everything you've done for me. They broke apart and just stared at one another. Well, you know I'd do anything for you, Ash. But I really wouldn't be here without you. So, I know I've said it already but, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I know it's been a long road to get here and I really appreciate that you put your life on hold for me these past 6 months. Oh, don't mention it, Rena. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I'm just so glad you've achieved your dreams too now. It's a great feeling, isn't it? Ash excitedly grabbed Serena's shoulders and shook her a little. Oh, for sure, I mean, it'll take some time to settle in, but I feel fantastic. Serena was happy, but then she looked down and her mood switched fairly quickly. Yet, I just wonder what's next. Ash lowered his hands and nodded in understanding. Well, you know I can relate to that. I'm still wondering that same thing myself. This journey was a nice distraction from it. But I still have no idea. Even so, if there's one thing I know after the last year, it's that I want you to be there with me, whatever we decide. Ash looked away and scratched his head. He had a habit of doing that whenever he talked about his feelings. Serena had figured that out by now and turned him back around to her straight away. I want you there too, Ash. They hugged again. Ash's phone buzzed as they did. He got it out of his pocket and saw the time. He put it back in and let go of Serena. Hey, it's getting late. Wanna go now? Yeah, I suppose so. Serena checked her phone too. It is getting late, yeah. I'm still trying to let it all sink in. Ash chuckled. Don't worry, Rena. It will all sink in soon. Now, let me take you back to the others on a victory parade. Ash extended his hand. Serena didn't hesitate to take it and let Ash walk her out. As they approached the plateau main lobby, Serena saw all the TV screens were playing her latest Poke Vision video, alongside a gif of her posing in her newly attained tiara, announcing her as the new Kanto Queen, with winner in big capital letters. Serena let go of Ash's hand and stopped and watched it with pride. Ash noticed it too and hyped Serena up about it, getting the attention from everyone waiting for her. They all got up out of their seats and whooped and cheered. Pikachu jumped on Serena's shoulder and nuzzled her affectionately, as a way of showing his happiness for her, and then hopped over to Ash's shoulder. Duh, thank you, guys, I love you all, shouted Serena. Everyone came over to personally congratulate and hug her, but Serena started to space out a little. The whole day played back in her head on rewind and everything felt like a blur to her. But she had done it. Initially, she had only really started her journey for the chance to rekindle her childhood friendship with Ash and see him again, but she never expected for things to get this far. To go from where she was at the beginning to now was unbelievable, yet remarkable too. And as far as her relationship with Ash coincided with that, it had only started off as a little fascinated crush. But now, it was complete and utter infatuation, and her feelings for him had developed into full-blown love. She was so in love with him, so much so, that it was blindingly obvious to anyone. Well, except Ash. Typically. She thought back to Shauna's comments at the first showcase, as the words echoed in the deepest corners of her mind. You just gotta tell him one day, you just gotta. 6 years is enough. Serena had just pulled off the seemingly impossible and was showcase royalty now. If she could do that, she could do anything, right? Serena smiled to herself and nodded. She seemed to have come to a conclusion in her head. Hey, you okay, Serena? Asked Clement, as he came over to hug her. He waved a hand in her face. Serena had barely acknowledged him coming over and apologized. Sorry, Clement. Just got something on my mind. Serena genuinely thought she was going mad for a second, at the mere thought of what she was about to do next. But something inside her just fired into action and gave her the guts to do it. Something she should have done a long time ago. She quickly hugged Clement and then turned to Ash and grabbed his hand. Come with me, she whispered, in his ear. Huh, what? Where? Asked Ash, completely dumbfounded. Just follow me, please. Alone. Okay. Ash turned to Pikachu on his shoulder. Stay here with the others, buddy. We'll be back soon. Pika, said Pikachu, confusedly. He jumped off his shoulder a little reluctantly. Pikachu really had no idea what was going on. Serena grabbed Ash's hand and dragged him down the corridor, without any warning. Everyone was just as visibly confused as Pikachu. Except Brock, who seemed very curious about Serena's sudden need to whisk Ash away. Where are you going, Serena? Asked Grace. I just have to talk to Ash. We won't be long. Please wait for us, everyone. Oh, okay. I hope everything's okay. Yes, everything's just fine, Mama. Serena continued to lead Ash away from the lobby and turned a corner. Ash was silent and a little nervous, not knowing what she wanted to get him alone for. He was starting to have doubts about their future, as Serena seemed to have made a decision on something. Serena pulled open the first door she saw and guided Ash into a small dark room. She found a light switch and turned it on, to find they were in an old broom cupboard. Ash shut the door behind them and immediately began to question her. All right. What's up, Rena? You were acting kinda strange back there. Serena didn't answer and instead just breathed heavily, like she'd just run a marathon, and then licked her lips. Ash raised an eyebrow, now looking a little worried. Rena, will you just talk to me, please? Serena impulsively pushed him against the door and then paused for a second. This was evidently not the time for words, and Ash was almost lost for them, as he looked at Serena in shock. But Serena was just staring at Ash's lips the whole time and looked like a hungry lioness. What are you do? Serena shut him up mid-sentence and grabbed his face and slammed her lips directly onto his. Ash's eyes widened in surprise and he muffled something into her mouth. But then he started to feel that feeling he had earlier at the hotel again. He was actually beginning to like this. A lot. Ash slowly closed his eyes and started to actually enjoy the kiss. Then Ash started to wonder what to do with his hands. He awkwardly flailed them about in the air, before resting them on Serena's shoulders. Ash really had no idea what to do in this situation, like the last time Serena had kissed him. But this time, it felt so much different. He had never kissed anyone before, unless you counted the first kiss at the airport, so he let Serena take the lead on it again. The kiss was significantly longer this time too, but eventually Serena had to pull away and catch her breath, as did Ash. They both opened their eyes. Whoa, was all Ash could say. He took his hat off and ran his fingers through his hair and laughed a little. Whoa? Is that all you can say? Laughed Serena. Well, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I'm a little stunned. Ash put his hat back on and sighed. Oh, sorry. Serena looked down at the floor, feeling like she'd blown it. Oh, no, don't apologize, I wasn't expecting it, but I actually really liked it. Serena's head immediately shot back up. She couldn't believe what she had just heard and looked absolutely hysterical with joy. You liked me kissing you? For real? Serena thought she was dreaming and was struggling to keep her emotions in check. Yeah, I can't explain it, but it just felt really good, Rena. Serena shook her head in denial that this was happening. You really mean that, Ash? Yes, of course. Serena calmed down and composed herself. Okay, it's just, you've never mentioned the first time I kissed you, so I always thought you didn't like it or something. Nah. I liked it. Wish I could have told you. I've just never really known how to talk about stuff like that. And you know I'm absolutely clueless when it comes to girls in general. I mean, I never grew up with dad or anything. So, I guess I just never really had anyone to talk to about it all. And I've always felt too awkward to talk about it with my mum. Serena nodded in sympathy. Oh, Ash. I understand. I never grew up with a dad either. I only had my mum too. But I didn't just kiss you for the sake of it. I know exactly how I feel about it, I. Serena wanted to confess there and then, but something was still holding her back. She growled at herself and slapped her cheeks. Ash immediately stopped her from harming herself any further and grabbed her hands. Hey, stop that, Rena. What's wrong? He asked, eyeing her closely with his big, brown caring eyes. Serena's heart rate was accelerating way beyond the normal speed it should. But she needed to be brave now. It was now or never. I have a confession. She blurted out suddenly. Ash let go of her hands and kept his full concentration on her. Why you do? Serena nodded. Well, what is it? Serena sighed. I want to say it. I really do. It's just hard to find the right way and actually say it out loud. She groaned frustratingly. Hey, Rena. You know you can tell me anything. Just take a deep breath and take your time. I'll wait as long as you need. Serena turned away and breathed through her nose and steadied her breathing. Then when she felt ready, she turned back to Ash and opened her mouth shakily. All right. Here goes. Ever since the first day we reunited in Kalos, I've had the biggest, maddest crush on you. I just love how passionate you are about everything you do and how you are always the most positive guy in the room. You are literally the reason why I'm standing here right now, with this tiara on my head. And you never stop inspiring me to do better and better and achieve all my dreams. And you are just so incredibly amazing, and handsome. Serena put her hand over her mouth and caught her breath. Ash was already having a hard time processing this all, but Serena had actually surprised herself. There was silence for a long while, as Serena awaited any kind of response to that crazy outburst of love. Ash blinked several times, as his dense brain tried to make sense of it all. So, what exactly are you saying then, Serena? Ash was looking deadly serious now and didn't want to misinterpret or hurt Serena's feelings. I'm saying that I like you, I really like you, and not just as a friend. I have feelings for you. Strong feelings at that. To Serena's pleasant surprise, Ash reacted by smiling at her. I know. Somehow I've always known. What? You knew? Asked Serena, with her eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. Well, sort of. I only really started to realize a little after I won the league. I guess becoming a Pokemon master just opened my mind up to other things. Well, what's your mind telling you now then? What do you mean? Asked Ash. He was still a little oblivious to this all. Serena had to be patient and direct with him, so she didn't become discouraged and tried again. I mean, I just told you I like you, so do you. Serena lost her breath for a second and had a momentary lapse in speech, but she found the strength to speak again. Do you like me? It made Serena feel sick having to ask that, but she couldn't just leave things as they were. Ash wasn't expecting it at all and looked around the room, unsure what to say or do. Serena prematurely read into his body language and jumped to the conclusion that the answer was no and looked distraught. She started to pace about the room with her hands on her head and cursed quietly in French. Serena really didn't want to hear those words of rejection that could destroy their entire relationship in one swoop. Her heart was hanging on a loose thread here. Ash looked at her and couldn't bear to see Serena like this at all, especially when he already knew the answer in his own heart. And then that feeling returned again. The urge and desire, he just couldn't control any longer. It took him a while to let this new unfamiliar feeling fully take over, but it was better late than never. Ash charged over to Serena and stopped her in her tracks, turning her around in front of him. 6 years of pining helplessly had to end sometime. The girl had waited long enough. Ash tenderly grabbed her face and closed his eyes. Then Serena saw his lips moving towards her and simply just eased up and closed her eyes too. She told herself to let fate decide what happened next. And she was right to, as Ash got closer and closer, until he pushed his lips onto Serena's. He didn't know how kissing worked one bit, but kissed her hard and as intimately as he could anyway. In truth, the kiss was terrible, as Ash's tongue and teeth kept getting in the way, but Serena didn't hesitate in kissing him back in spite of it. No complaints here. Serena moaned a little, as the saliva they were exchanging stuck their lips together. It had to end again sometime though, as Ash pulled away and grinned. "Does that answer your question?" asked Ash coolly. "Uh-huh." Serena was a blushing, gushy mess and looked very satisfied indeed. Ash laughed. Then he looked down at Serena's ribbon and started playing with it for a bit. Serena looked down at it too and thought of the day Ash gave it to her. But it really didn't need to be brought up. They both remembered it fondly enough. Ash let go of her ribbon and they both looked up at the same time into each other's eyes. Ash stroked his fingers across Serena's hair. "Hey, Rena. Remember earlier when you put on the dress and I was acting kinda weird?" "Haha. Yeah? Hey, don't laugh," teased Ash. Serena tried not to laugh again. "Okay, sorry. Go on, Ash." "All right, yeah, it was kind of funny looking back, but I was genuinely struggling to speak. Because what I really wanted to say is that I thought you looked." Ash's lips quivered a little. "Beautiful, Rena." "Oh. Why, you really think so?" "Yes, Rena. You are so beautiful." "Ah, you don't know how happy I am to hear that." Ash gave her one of his trademark grins. "Well, it's true." They both nervously looked away for a bit and then back to each other. "So, what next then, Queen Serena?" Serena raised an eyebrow flirtatiously. "Well, this queen could do with a king by her side. Maybe we could be boyfriend and girlfriend. I mean, if you want, totally up to you, of course," she said, in one breath. Serena nervously twiddled her thumbs and looked up and down quickly between her hands and Ash. Her cheeks were really flaring up now, red as a beetroot. "Oh right. Boyfriend and girlfriend." Ash processed it in his head and stroked his chin. "Yeah. I want to be with you, Ash," mumbled Serena, quietly. "Well, I've never been a boyfriend before. I haven't got the first idea how it all works," said Ash, scratching his head. "It's okay. We could take it slow and see how things go." Ash nodded. "Okay, yeah, but on one condition." Serena looked up at Ash with a hint of desperation in her eyes. She'd do anything to be with him. "Okay. What? Promise you'll stay and come back to Pallet with me. I'm over the moon for you now, you're Kanto Queen. But I don't want to lose you." Serena laughed and shook her head at how dumb Ash could be. "Oh, you silly boy," said Serena, with love. "That's basically the whole point of being boyfriend and girlfriend." "Oh." Serena laughed again. "You really do have a lot to learn about relationships. But of course I'll stay with you and you're definitely not gonna lose me. I mean, we're best friends already, so being boyfriend and girlfriend is just the same. Just with kissing and other things, like dates and cuddles and stuff." "Oh, I see. Well, I like the sound of that, me too. So, are we officially going out now then?" "Yeah. I want to be with you too, Rena." Serena got excited and tackled Ash into a hug. "Kiss me again, Ash, so I know I'm not dreaming." Ash smiled and didn't keep her waiting. He gave her what she wanted and it was sealed with a meaningful lock of the lips. There'd be a lot more of that to come for certain. Ash and Serena were now officially together. Together forever, perhaps, forever and a day, even. Who knows? They were such good friends already and had known each other since the very beginning. Their relationship was just evolving a little now. Ash would need to grow into it for sure, but the feelings were there on both sides, even if Serena's were more advanced. The kiss ended beautifully, with cute giggles and Serena rubbing her nose against Ash's. Then in the corner of Ash's eye, he saw a clock hanging on the wall. It was nearly 10 p.m. now. His eyes widened. "Hey, Rena. I think we should probably get going now. The others have been waiting a while for us, you know." Serena turned around to look at the clock too and her jaw dropped. "Oh, my. Yes. You're right. Let's go." Serena began to rush out, but then Ash stopped her and grabbed her hand. "Wait. What are we gonna tell them?" About, us. Serena smiled. Well, I'm happy to tell them if you are. Ash nodded in agreement. All right. Yeah, let's do it. Now let me escort you out, my queen. Give me your hand. Serena giggled and presented her hand for her king. Ash held it tight and then walked Serena out of the broom cupboard, turning off the light with his other hand on the way out. They walked slowly down the hallway, hand in hand, and heard music playing in the lobby. As they made their way back, the TV screens were still showing pictures and videos of Serena and her winning performance. But it was now accompanied by Gotta Be You by One Direction, playing out of the speakers. Mostly everyone had left by this point in the night, but a few remained, including a very tired-looking group of loyal friends and a worried mother, wondering where Serena had gone. They were all sitting down and nattering about Ash and Serena and what they thought was going on. Then Grace spotted them out of the corner of her eye. She got up and put her hands on her hips. Oh, there you are. Where have you two been? We've been waiting ages. Oh, sorry, Mama. We were just, It seemed so simple back in the broom cupboard, but Serena didn't quite know how to say it to her and everyone else. There wasn't any time to think though, as Grace noticed they were holding hands and were standing very close to each other. Wait. Why are you holding hands like that? Serena's face got hot, as her cheeks flared up again in a flash. Oh, well. You see, we're kind of, together, interrupted Brock, suddenly. Serena was thankful for the intervention and took a huge sigh of relief. Yeah, we are, confirmed Ash, nodding at Brock. There was a long pause for a while, as everyone just gaped at them. The first to react was Bonnie, as she couldn't contain her excitement any longer. Oh my God. I always knew this would happen one day, squealed Bonnie, delightedly. She ran over to them and hugged them happily. Meanwhile, Clement looked bewildered and just fixed his glasses, with a confused expression. Well, I wasn't expecting that, not sure what to say. But, congratulations, I suppose, said Clement. Oh, big brother. Maybe one day you'll get it, said Bonnie, shrugging her shoulders at him. Then Brock came over and playfully slapped Ash on the back. Well, looks like you've finally got yourself a girlfriend, bro. He looked over at Serena and smiled. You two really do make quite the team after all. I knew there was something there. He winked at them and then they awkwardly thanked him. Then Olivia came over and clung onto her fiancé and looked just as thrilled as Bonnie. Oh, this is just too cute. You just have to come on a double date with Brock and I sometime. Double date? Asked Ash, looking over at Serena, with a perplexed look on his face. Don't worry, Ash. We'll work up to that. But, yes. Maybe one day soon, Olivia. Excellent. You two are so adorable, she sighed sweetly in adoration for them. Thanks, they both replied. Everyone started discussing this new development amongst themselves, but Serena couldn't help but notice that her mum hadn't said anything at all. She wasn't happy or unhappy about it, but just seemed very taken aback by it all. Hey, Mama. You're very quiet. What do you think about us? Grace snapped out of her state of denial. Well, it's just a lot to take in, sweetie. You've never had a boyfriend before or even really talked about boys with me, so I'm just surprised. That's all. I guess you're not a little girl anymore though. I just wasn't expecting this. And I had no idea you liked Ash that way. But I mean, you two were always so close and you've been inseparable since you reunited with him, so I probably should have guessed. Yeah. I've always liked him, Mama. To be honest, he's the reason I started my journey in the first place. Remember that day Garchomp was on a rampage on Prism Tower? Grace nodded. Well, if you never told me to watch it on the TV, I would have never seen Ash there that day. I may never have even met him again. And I definitely wouldn't be standing here right now either. But as soon as I saw him, I remembered him straight away from the summer camp you took me to, when I was 5 and I just had to see him again. And the rest is history. I never expected to fall for him. But, it just happened. And I want to be with him now. If that's okay with you, Mama? Well, of course it's okay. Honey, Ash is probably the most wonderful young man I know. And I have to say, he's really brought the best out in you. But, Ash. Ash turned to look at her and listened closely. Before I approve, I just need you to promise me one thing. Ash nodded. Of course, Grace. Just please continue to look after Serena the way you have been these last few years. I only have one daughter after all, and she's my world, Ash. And Kanto is on the other side of the globe from Kalos. So, please. Promise me you'll always keep her safe, no matter what. Grace gave him a very serious look. Ash was just as serious in response and took his hat off and bowed to her. I will. She'll always be safe with me, I promise, Grace. Grace stared at him with a harsh stare for a while, before relaxing her face and smiling. Well, okay then. You have my full approval. Besides, I absolutely love your mother. She is such a lovely lady and she really has brought you up impeccably well, young man. So, I will definitely be visiting Kanto again to see her and check in on you too in the future. Ash raised his head back up happily and put his hat back on. Thank you, Grace. I appreciate that. Oh, thank you so much, Mama. Serena rushed over to hug her. Grace held her in her arms and signaled Ash to come over and join. If this was going to be long-term, the two families would inevitably come together. They hugged as one and everyone else couldn't help but admire how heartwarming it was. After the hugging, Serena cleared her throat. Well, I guess it's time to go now then, but I just want to say one last thank you to you all for coming to support me. I'll never forget this, I swear. It really was the perfect day for Serena and the ending was as surreal as a princess fairy tale. But now it was time to go back to the hotel and get some rest. Ash and Serena walked out in front together, headfirst into a brave new chapter in their lives. A crescent moon was out in the night sky, with several twinkling shiny stars keeping it company. What was next in their story was unclear, but the universe was certainly looking down on them kindly tonight. The one thing they knew for sure, however, was that Pallet Town was awaiting their return. 3 months later, Ash and Serena were out in the back garden, lying on beach lounge chairs and soaking up the sun. Pallet Town was experiencing a lengthy episode of heatwaves that didn't appear to be letting up anytime soon. With it being so hot, Ash was wearing nothing but shorts and Serena had a pink bikini on. The sun was beating down on them hard, as a reflection of the bright rays hit their sunglasses. Thankfully, Mr. Mime was right on cue to help cool them down and emerged through the garden door with a tray, holding 2 very exotic and refreshing drinks. Thank you, Mimey, said Serena. Mr. Mime nodded happily and cheerily hummed his way back into the house. Ash had a sweet, strawberry-flavored drink and Serena had a tangy, orange-flavored drink. They sipped them and sighed refreshingly, as it cooled them down and quenched their thirst. They put them down and continued to relax. Serena turned over to Ash and looked at him as if to say, I can't believe he's mine. She leant over and rested a hand on his bare chest. Perhaps the best part of dating Ash for the last 3 months was getting to touch him a lot more and be able to admire his body, without fear of being caught now. Serena traced her fingers over his chest playfully and smirked. Hey, handsome, she said, in a flirty tone. Ash tipped his sunglasses down and peered over at her, smirking back. Yeah, babe? Ash still called her Rena from time to time, but he had recently become rather fond of calling her babe too. And Serena absolutely loved it, still getting little flutters when he said it. You know we've been dating for 3 months now. Yeah, 3 months, tomorrow, right, babe? Yup. I'm surprised you remember. Ash looked proud of himself and nodded smugly. Well, of course I do. It was also the best day of your life, so it's important to me. Yeah, you're right. It really was. And that's sweet of you to say, Ash. So, what did you want to tell me then? We've been dating for 3 months and... Oh, it's nothing. Don't worry. Ash shook his head and was having none of it. He turned over to face her. Nah, you're my girl. And if my girl has something she wants to say, I want to know. Serena sighed and rolled her eyes, before smiling in defeat. You know, for a guy that never even knew what being boyfriend and girlfriend meant, you're a hell of a good boyfriend, laughed Serena. Ash shrugged like it was nothing. Well, Brock's given me a few pointers. But most of it just comes naturally, because I really like you, Rena. I really like you too, Ash. The real L word hadn't been mentioned yet, but God did Serena want to say it. It was way too soon though. But, and please don't feel like I'm pressuring you or anything, but we haven't been, you know. Ash raised an eyebrow and had no idea what Serena was alluring to. Intimate, Serena whispered. Oh. Ash actually knew exactly what she was talking about now. Since they returned to Pallet, Ash had been having regular phone calls and meetings with Brock about what it meant to be a boyfriend. Safe to say, Ash had learned a fair lot and wasn't half as dense as he used to be now. But he wasn't exactly going to push Serena up against a wall, ram his tongue down her throat, rip her clothes off and get in bed with her anytime soon. He'd learned all about sex from Brock and was still learning more and more every day. But the most Ash and Serena had done up to this point was a 20-minute makeout session, with wandering hands in strictly appropriate places only. To Serena's great disappointment. And even that took a while to work up to. So, Serena had to bide her time. Even if she couldn't stop thinking about Ash ripping off her clothes, ripping off his own end. Serena's thoughts were trailing off wildly, while she waited for Ash to comprehend exactly what she was asking. Well, don't get me wrong, Rena. I want to. I really do. But I just don't think I'm ready yet. I'm still learning, I guess. Serena nodded understandingly. Okay, I get it. Serena moved her hand over to his leg and rubbed it. But whenever you're ready, baby, I'll be waiting, she said, in a sultry voice. She smirked at him and kissed him on the cheek, slowly moving her hand up and away from his leg. Ash suddenly got a rush of blood and his body was flooding with desire. Just because he wasn't ready for the whole shebang didn't mean he didn't still have strong urges. He couldn't just let Serena tease him like that and get away with it. He leaned over to Serena and pulled her into a kiss. Serena was taken off guard a little, but quickly muffled a moan of approval. Then the garden door suddenly flung open. Ash quickly broke apart from Serena and looked a little flustered. He hadn't gotten to the stage where he was comfortable kissing around other people yet, but Delia and Mr. Mime had seen enough as they walked towards them. Delia was carrying burgers and baps and some chicken skewers, while Mr. Mime had his chef's hat on and looked ready to cook. Delia stopped and smiled. Ah, you two are just so precious, still can't believe my Ashie has a girlfriend. Mum, cried Ash, looking embarrassed. Oh, come on, sweetie. You've been together for 3 months now. You can kiss in front of me. She winked at them. You saw that? Asked Ash, red-faced. Of course I did, honey. I've caught you two a few times before and you're actually getting better at it, you know. Ash groaned in embarrassment, while Serena just giggled. She's right, you know, she agreed, smirking and bouncing her eyebrows up and down teasingly. Ash lightened up and began to see the funny side of it. Haha, okay. Fair enough. I mean, you can kiss me again if you want. You don't need to be shy in front of other people. Okay. Ash quickly pecked her on the lips. Delia chuckled. Honestly, you really don't need to feel embarrassed at all, Ash, it's perfectly normal. I'm just so happy you and Serena found each other. I mean, I was wondering when you'd finally bring a girl home. Or a guy. Thought you could have been gay at one point, which would have been totally fine of course, but... Mum. Let me just stop you right there. I'm definitely into girls, more specifically, I'm into Rena. I was just a late bloomer. That's all. Ah, well you're all mine now, said Serena, nuzzling him. And even though it was frustrating at times, your denseness was actually kinda cute anyway. Ash laughed. Well, what can I say? I was just too focused on my dreams to notice what was right in front of me the whole time. Ah, that's so sweet, Ashie, exclaimed Delia. Now, who's hungry? Ash was first to shoot his hand up right away. Everyone laughed. If there was a top 3 list of things Ash loved, it was Serena, Pokemon battles and food, in that order. Well, let's get the barbecue going then, Mimey. Mr. Mime happily got the barbecue started. Delia sat down with Ash and Serena and let Mr. Mime get on with it. His main passion was definitely cooking and he preferred to do it by himself. Once everything was cooked, everyone sat down to eat. Serena let out Pancham, Delphox and Sylveon and gave them some Pokemon food to eat. Pikachu joined in as well and had a little bottle of ketchup too on the side. It was a very beautiful summer's day, as they ate, laughed and had fun in the sun. Serena was probably the happiest she had ever been. She felt part of Ash's family already, in just the space of a few months, and of course, she knew her mother was always going to be there for her and she would see her again one day. But it felt like she was really building a life in Kanto with Ash now. It was super early stages, but everything just felt so right and she could definitely see herself living with Ash long term. She'd be lying to herself if she said she didn't miss home, but this was her new home now. They spent so long talking, that they hadn't even noticed the day had flown past them and the skies were getting darker now. Ash and Serena packed up the beach chairs and headed indoors with Delia and Mr. Mime. They all sat down in the front room and watched a funny show together. Delia was a little distracted, however, and was curious about something. So, Ash, Serena, they both turned to look at her. I know you're still on summer vacation, but what's next for you two? I mean, you're a proper couple now. So, I'm just wondering if you have any plans for the future? To be honest, we really haven't given it much thought yet, Mum, but I did say I'd get back to Professor Oak on his job offer. I just need to think about it some more. Well, he did say there would be a few vacancies in September. Would you want to take the job too, Serena? I don't know, if I'm being honest. Becoming Kanto Queen has really opened my eyes up to other things I could be doing. I just still haven't figured it out yet. Delia nodded and then Serena turned to Ash. But I do really think the Pokemon Daycare Center job is perfect for you, Ash. Yeah. I do like the sound of it, Rena. I just feel like there's something else out there for me too. But, hey, I'm just gonna see where life takes me. All I really need right now is you, Rena. Ah, me too, Ash. But if our relationship is to progress, we'll have to start thinking about the future one day soon, you know. Serena's right, Ash. Your collective prize money won't last forever, and as much as I still see you as my baby, you are becoming an adult now. So, you will have to accept change at some point, especially if you truly want to build a life with Serena. I mean, who knows? You two could be for keeps, and that means you'll have to think about settling down. Ash processed everything that had been said and stayed silent for a while. He didn't really want to grow up, and the idea that he would probably not go on another journey again now was hard to imagine. But the reality was that his teenage years were nearly over and now he had a girlfriend. He had to think about her and what she wanted too. He made a note to himself to ask Brock about the whole alien concept of adulting and the phrase Delia had just said. He didn't quite really know the meaning of it, having always traveled for the last 9 years of his life. Settling down. The words rang through his ears over and over again, like a song lyric stuck in his head. He had never really stopped and stayed in one place before, but he had for the last 3 months. And all because of one girl he could not bear to be apart from. He wasn't quite on the same level as Serena yet, but he definitely had feelings for her now, and it was all becoming very real, very fast. Yeah. You're right, Mum. I just don't want to rush into anything, and our relationship is still just getting started. But, I'm definitely thinking about the future. I just couldn't say what that looks like right now. Serena's definitely there though. Ash beamed at his girlfriend. Ah, you're definitely in mine too, babe. Serena kissed him on the lips. Ash seemed to be more forthcoming with it this time and didn't seem to mind so much about his mum being there now. Then everyone's attention focused back on the TV show, until it started to get late and Delia decided to call it a night. Mr. Mime went with her and helped her settle to sleep. Ash and Serena followed not long after and went their separate ways to their rooms. That was another thing Ash hadn't quite mastered yet, relationship-wise. They were yet to actually sleep in the same bed together, and it was on Serena's mind every night since they had been together. She had to remind herself that Ash wasn't like most other guys though, and she would need to give him time. They were both lying wide awake in bed in their PJs, with their fans on full power. But the heat was making it impossible to sleep. Ash in particular was struggling the most, not just because of the heat, but also because of everything that was said earlier. It was really making him think. He couldn't ignore the fact that Serena was craving more intimacy from him, and he knew he wanted it too. It was just a matter of trying not to overthink it and just doing it. Ash was usually confident in pretty much everything he did, but he was actually very nervous about this. What if he got it horribly wrong and Serena was completely put off him? He thought long and hard about it, but then remembered Serena was very inexperienced too. Maybe she wouldn't expect too much of him. Maybe it wouldn't be such a daunting thing after all. Perhaps he should relax and just have fun with it. He had never done anything intimate with a girl before, but part of him was always curious about it. And ever since he saw Serena in that dress, he had wondered what was underneath it. There was definitely a libido kicking in somewhere deep inside of him. And the memory of zipping up her dress kept replaying in his mind. He remembered how much he wanted to feel her skin, get his hands all over her and feel the shape of her body. Serena hadn't worn the dress since that day, but one time was enough to stimulate Ash's lustfulness for her. Brock had taught him all about the female anatomy too, and he could never forget how the dress made Ash notice parts of Serena he'd never even acknowledged before. Her face was beautiful enough, but when he pictured her in his mind, he started to visualize everything from the neck down too. Serena's regular clothes didn't always show much, but the dress really diverted his attention down to her chest. At the time, he had thought Serena had somehow squeezed 2 jiggly puffs in her dress. But Ash had come to realize that it was a part of Serena he was simply yet to discover. That wasn't the only thing he discovered too, as his eyes also spotted another jiggly thing when she spun around to show him the back of the dress. He knew all about what it was already, but it had never really been something he cared much for before. One time when he was traveling with Dawn, he did accidentally catch an eyeful of hers when she bent over to pick something up. He was casually eating some of Brock's soup at the time, but he didn't stare for long and carried on eating. But with Serena, it was as if he was in a trance when he saw it. So round and plump, like 2 peaches that looked so tightly pressed together in the dress. In short, Serena was a bit of an all-rounder, body-wise, and Ash had certainly become very enamored by every detail of it. Ash groaned to himself and tugged his vest restlessly. He wondered again just what was beyond the dress, or whatever she was wearing to bed now. He had had enough lessons with Brock by now to know they weren't actually jiggly puffs or peaches. No way she could fit them in that dress anyway. But from what he knew about what they actually were, he just had to have them and become more familiar with them. And not just by studying them in sex education books. He had to study Serena in her whole womanly majesty. And a hands-on approach was very much needed. He groaned again, louder this time, and suddenly leapt out of bed and paced about. He tried to think about something else less provocative, but it was useless. The sexiness of it all was just too overstimulating. He grunted and then his eyes blazed with passion. Something switched on in a very deep corner of Ash's brain, and then he swung his door open and marched over to Serena's room, like a man on a mission. He approached her door and didn't even knock, just letting himself in quietly. The room was quite dark, but the TV was still on and provided a faint light. Ash saw Serena lying awake in bed. She was staring blankly at the ceiling when she jumped up at the sudden sight of him. "Oh, Ash. What are you doing here?" Ash didn't say a word and instead made his way over to her and just stared at her hungrily. Then he took Serena's covers off her. She was wearing her lavender pajama top, with her usual pink PJ shorts and pink bow in her hair. Serena looked at him, a little shocked as to what he was doing and how he was looking at her right now. It was like the time he caught a fever and went straight over to Serena and muttered, "Iron Tail, Pikachu." He wasn't acting himself at all that day, and it was clear something was wrong. But Ash didn't look unwell tonight. Ash got closer to her. "What are you do?" It was Ash's turn to stop Serena mid-sentence, as he gently pushed her back down on the bed and got on top of her, sealing her lips shut with his. Serena smiled through the kiss. She really didn't care if Ash was acting out of character now. This was exactly what she needed right now, on such a perturbed, seemingly long and lonely night. She didn't hesitate at all to react and wrapped her arms around him and attacked his lips, just as ferociously. They made out for a while, until their jaws got tired. Serena slowly opened her eyes back up, as they took a little break. "Now, what's gotten into you then, huh?" she said, between long breaths. Ash's eyes trailed up and down Serena, as he placed his hand on Serena's shoulder and traced it all the way down her body until he reached her thigh. He breathed just as heavily as her, but his eyes said he clearly hadn't had enough of her yet. Serena caught Ash's eyes. As he looked back up at her, she looked deep into them and almost couldn't believe the pure and genuine lust in his eyes. She'd never seen him like that before. "I want you," he mumbled. He barely spoke, but those 3 words said 100 more. Serena felt a rush of dopamine flood her insides and internally screamed. She looked into his eyes obediently. "You want me?" Ash nodded and started planting kisses on her cheek and made his way down to her neck. Serena moaned in pleasure. "Oh, you can have me," she said, breathlessly. Ash looked up at her again and turned the corner of his mouth up slightly, then continued his onslaught of neck kisses. "Oh, we. said Serena, trying not to lose her breath completely. She closed her eyes and let Ash do as he pleased. Then he suddenly stopped and Serena opened her eyes again disappointedly. But when she saw why he had stopped, she smirked mischievously. He was staring directly at her chest. "Ooh. You wanna unzip it, baby?" Ash just grunted what sounded like a yes. He seemed to have lost the ability to form any kind of proper sentence all of a sudden, but Serena was more concerned about what he was doing, rather than saying. "You don't even have to ask." Ash stared into her lustrous eyes and then back down at the zip. He reached his hand across it, hesitated a little and then began to slowly zip it down. Serena had a bra on underneath, but Ash didn't need to take it off to see the Jigglypuffs balloon out in front of him. He looked up at Serena. "See, can I?" Serena nodded and gave her consent. Ash shakily placed a hand on one of them and then the other, trying to get a firm grip on both of them. He took it slowly, until he felt confident enough to fondle them around in his hands. This was the very first time Ash was getting to know Serena in this way. He was utterly in awe, just taking in all her beauty. Serena looked down at him and smiled. Ash raised his head up and began to kiss her again, while still having a good handful of her Jigglypuffs. "Oh, yes, baby. You're doing so good, keep going," encouraged Serena. Ash was getting even hotter now, so took his vest off and then the kissing started to become more intense again. But this time, Ash suddenly flipped himself and Serena onto their side. Hands fumbled about up and down and side to side, as they reached new uncharted territories. Except, as tempted as she was, Serena made sure not to go any lower than Ash's waist. And so did Ash, as he kept his hands up her body. They were really enjoying themselves now and even found time to giggle a little in between pauses for air. This was positively excellent progress for Serena and she was loving every second. She didn't want to get too ahead of herself, however, and tried to remind herself that Ash probably still needed more time, before they went the whole way. But, oh, was she ready and gagging for it. She expected it to end soon though, but then she felt a hand sink into something that had never been squeezed before. They both slowly opened their eyes and Serena raised a curious eyebrow at Ash. His arm was wrapped over her and his hand had ventured below her back. Ash hadn't even really realized it was there amongst the excitement, but he was getting a different kind of handful this time. He felt something very squishy, that he liked the feel of. A tempting, Moorish, soft peach. He kinda preferred the feel of it more than the Jigglypuffs, but he quickly retracted his hand and blushed. Ash had initiated everything to this point, but things were moving faster tonight than even Serena could anticipate. "Oh, sorry, Rena. Didn't mean to touch you there," he said, awkwardly. Serena just giggled. She didn't seem too uncomfortable with it at all. "It's okay, Ash. You can touch me there if you want. You like it?" Ash nodded and smiled and then they immediately picked up where they left off. Both their tongues danced a salsa with one another, flapping against each other, like lick-a-tongue lick attacks. Then Ash pulled Serena even closer to him, to the point where they were grinding up together hard and Ash's chest was sweatily pressed up against Serena's. They truly couldn't stop tasting each other and frantically running their hands all over each other, until the one thing Serena hadn't touched suddenly poked her a little. Serena stopped the ecstasy train and pulled away. What's wrong?" asked Ash, looking sheepish. Something just poked me." Serena moved away from Ash and looked a little stunned when she saw what it was. "Oh, I see. What?" Serena tried to keep a straight face, but couldn't, as she struggled to contain her naughty delight. She grinned cheekily and motioned her head down towards Ash's crotch. She had dreamt many times of unzipping his pants and pulling his boxers clean off. But every time, the dream ended with a dark abyss, in place of what should actually be in Ash's pants, and she woke up in a frenzy. Ash looked down and was horrified. "Oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening." He quickly put his hands over his crotch and Serena giggled. "It's okay, Ash. What's happened there is perfectly natural." It is? Of course. It just means you're aroused, silly." And there it was again. That a word. Ash knew all about it now, but he had never felt the full effects of it until now. He shifted his eyes away shyly. "I see. So, is that the first time you've got you know?" Ash was fully aware of what she was insinuating and just nodded. He wasn't too thrilled to admit it though. "Ah, well, I'm glad it was for me. Hee hee." Ash just continued to look in any direction that wasn't Serena's and looked a little embarrassed. Serena wished he would just take his pants off already, while he was still good to go, and give her what she really wanted. But she had to take what she could get for now and rein herself in. She sighed lovingly and tilted Ash's face back towards her and kissed his cheek. "It's okay. You don't have to be embarrassed or anything." Ash moved away and sat up. "I'm not," he lied. "I just don't know what to, do with it," said Ash. He was definitely telling the truth there though. Ash hadn't quite got that far yet. Serena smiled and sat up with him. She moved behind him and rubbed his shoulders comfortingly. "Okay. Well, don't worry, we can get to that point another time." "Okay, yeah. I think that's probably enough for one day." Ash moved further away and scooched over to the edge of the bed, crossing his legs and waiting for his problem to go away. After a couple minutes of somewhat awkward silence, Ash suddenly got up and said goodnight a little abruptly. Serena frowned and grabbed his arm before he could go. There was no way he was leaving her all alone for the night, after what had just happened. "Wait. Stay with me, please." Ash turned around. What do you mean? "Stay the night. Please. We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. I promise. I just want to cuddle you in bed now, there's plenty of room." She patted the bed and smiled warmly at him. The thought of spending the night with Serena had barely crossed Ash's mind before. But Serena had been patiently hoping for it every night since she was crowned, and this queen certainly deserved it. Ash thought about it for a second. "Oh, is that what boyfriends and girlfriends do?" "Yeah. All the time, babe. I just want to be wrapped in your arms all night long," she said, starry-eyed. Ash slowly smiled, beginning to understand and like the idea of it. Plus, he couldn't say no to her when she did that thing with her eyes, when she really wanted something. She was way too excited at the prospect of it to take no for an answer. He smiled back at her and it got wider and wider, with a keen glint in his eye. "Well, in that case." Ash rushed over and grabbed Serena's waist. He picked her up and spun her a little, to lay her head carefully onto her pillow. Then he got on top and they both giggled. Ash suddenly realized how good this position was and rather enjoyed being on top of Serena. She felt exactly the same way and was more than happy to be looking up at her favorite person in the world. In truth though, all she could think of now was how she really hoped this wasn't the last time she was under him. But Ash was starting to look a little more serious now. "Hey, Rena? Yeah. Thanks for being patient with me. I know you've been waiting a long time and it must feel a little frustrating. But you can see how crazy I am about you. And you already know how much I want you. I just need time." "I know, Ash. I'll wait as long as you need. I mean, I waited long enough to have you, didn't I?" Ash nodded and they both laughed. "So, I think I can wait a bit longer. But all I want now is for you to hold me." Ash grinned, full of glee. "Now, that I can do." Ash got off Serena and told her to get under the covers. Serena quickly did as she was told, absolutely buzzing with joy about what was finally going to happen. Ash climbed over her and took his place behind her, against the wall. Serena turned to face him and couldn't contain her emotions any longer. "Oh, you don't know how long I've wanted this. I've always wanted you in my bed. I'm such a lucky girl." Ash stroked her hair. "Well, this is new to me, but if it means I get to see your pretty face more often and be closer to you, then I think I'm gonna love it, and I'm definitely very lucky too." Serena's eyes crinkled and her cheeks were starting to hurt a little from smiling so much. "Well, one step at a time, tiger. It's cuddle time now, so, come here, hot stuff." Serena shuffled as close as she could to Ash and rested her head into his chest. Ash was a little awkward at first and didn't quite know what to do, but he loosened up eventually and put his arm around her. "And hey, maybe if you feel like it, we can try spooning too," said Serena, into Ash's chest. "Spooning, huh? Yeah, it's like cuddling, but a bit more intimate." "Ah, yes. Brock did mention that he and Olivia do it from time to time. So, I think I have a rough idea what it's all about." Serena was happy Ash wasn't so clueless about these things anymore and felt more at ease talking about this sort of stuff with him now. "Well, as you're staying the night with me, you can be the big spoon when we fall asleep together. Only if you want, of course." "That sounds perfect, Rena. I think I just need to stop being so afraid of physical intimacy." Ash laughed nervously. Serena looked a little surprised and wasn't expecting Ash to say something so personal, so out of the blue. It needed a carefully thought-out response, as she tried to understand it from Ash's point of view. She thought Ash communicating it so openly was very brave of him and miles better than taking the easy option and keeping it to himself. Well, it's okay if you are. We can work on that. She patted him on the arm. Yeah, I guess so. I just get a bit overwhelmed and nervous like I did earlier. I mean, I've never even been naked in front of anyone before. So, the idea of having sex? Ash nodded. Yeah, it's just a bit much and I'm still learning. 3 months ago, I'd never even kissed a girl properly before. And now I've got you, babe. And I know you want to take it to the next level and that's great. It's just a lot. But I really want to do it all with you, Rena. I just don't want to disappoint you, you know? Serena nodded. Well, that could never happen. But if it's an insecurity thing, then trust me, I'm not exactly entirely confident about myself either. And I've also got some anxieties about having sex too. It's a big thing, but it doesn't have to be such a big deal, if we just try to enjoy it like anything else we do together. And don't forget, we're in the same boat, Ash. I've got no experience whatsoever too. I doubt I'll even know what I'm doing, but when you low. Serena's tongue recoiled back in her mouth, as she stopped herself from finishing the sentence. Ash raised an eyebrow. When you. Serena took a deep breath. I mean, I don't want to say it, in case you're not ready to hear it. But let's just say you're my everything, Ash. And that means I'm willing to be vulnerable and give you every fiber of my being. In every and any way. And I hope you come to feel the same way one day. Ah. Well, I'm sure I'll catch up one day, Rena. But I just want you to know, I'm deadly serious about you. About us. You're my girl, and you best believe that. Serena looked up at him and melted into yet another gooey mess. This must be the 50th time by now. Oh, I'm so glad you're finally mine. Me too, Rena. Ash kissed her on her head and then Serena yawned. Tired? Yeah. The heat was keeping me up, but now I'm with you. I guess, I feel more relaxed. Ash yawned too. Snap. They laughed. Well, I'm gonna turn over. You're welcome to spoon me if you like. She winked and got into a comfortable sleeping position. Ash wriggled a little closer, but hesitated and just listened to Serena's calm, soft breathing for a while. And in that moment, Ash realized that intimacy existed in many different forms. He may not have been ready for the kind Serena wanted tonight, but this was just as good. Maybe better, in fact. Ash was a little reluctant to move closer, but there was no way he could resist any longer. He had to just let his deepest desires overtake him and be in the moment. Ash brushed off his anxieties and continued to wriggle across the bed to Serena, eventually pressing himself up as tightly as he could against her. And then it wasn't long until his arm was over her stomach. Within seconds, Serena's hand latched onto his arm and she purred like a pussycat for him. Hey, Rena? Replied Serena, sleepily. Wanna go to the cinema tomorrow night? There's a new horror movie out I wanna see. Okay. But only if you promise to hold me when I get scared. You know I scare easily, babe. Of course. Just squeeze my hand real tight and I'll be there. All right. It's a date then, thanks, babe. Ash yawned again. Well, I can't stay awake any longer. Sweet dreams, my queen. Ash kissed her goodnight. Serena chuckled a little and shook her head. Sometimes even she forgot she was Kanto Queen. Night. Sleep well, my king. Serena reached for the TV remote on her beside table and turned the TV off. She glanced back at Ash. He was beginning to drift off already in typical Ash fashion, as Serena only realized now for the first time just how cute he actually looked asleep. She kissed him goodnight too. See you in the morning, she whispered. Serena snuggled back up to Ash and fell asleep, feeling like the most loved girlfriend in the world. Another 3 months later, the last remnants of summer were gradually fading away and hints of autumn were seeping through into palette. Ash and Serena had continued to develop their relationship and were currently in a very good place. Except, there was still the small matter of actually sleeping together and not just the kind where they spend the night in each other's bed. But ever since that steamy night in June, they had slept in the same room together every single night. They took it in turns at first, alternating between each room each night, but now they just stayed in Ash's room most of the time. And that was exactly where they woke up today, on a slightly chilly Monday morning. Ash stirred in his sleep and tossed side to side, flopping his arm over Serena's midriff. She groaned a little, but then sleepily smiled and grabbed Ash's hand, half awake. Then a loud beeping shook them both up. Serena ignored it and rolled over towards the wall. 7 a.m. read the alarm clock on Ash's bedside, as he leapt up and slammed the off button. He yawned loudly and scratched his armpits, like a slacking. Then he rubbed his bleary eyes and swung his legs out of bed. He sat on the edge of the bed for a few minutes, giving himself time to wake up and adjust his eyes to the light. He was exceptionally tired today for some reason, but today was a very important day and he couldn't be late for it. He lifted himself off the bed and accidentally farted as he got up. Serena turned around and scowled at him, wafting the smell away. "Oh, Ash, that's disgusting," he sniggered. "Sorry, Rena, couldn't stop it. Better out than in though, right?" Serena rolled her eyes and cracked a little smile, shaking her head at him. Being with the man of her dreams was definitely one of the best things, if not the best thing, to happen to Serena, but that also came with certain domesticity factors, both positive and negative. Yet, farting was nothing compared to other common relationship problems most couples experienced. But, they had reached a point where they were comfortable doing pretty much anything around each other. "I guess so," said Serena, absent-mindedly. Then she suddenly remembered something. "Oh, sorry, I almost forgot, it's your first day today, isn't it?" Ash nodded and rushed around his room, looking for clothes to wear for the day. "Yup. Gotta be in at 9 sharp. Can't wait to get started, I'm raring to go." Serena smiled and admired his positive mental attitude, that he never seemed to lose and made her fall for him in the first place. "I'm so proud of you, you know, you're really growing up." "Thanks, Rena. Had to get a job sometime, didn't I? And Professor Oak really needs the staff." "Yeah. You're gonna be amazing, babe. No one cares more about Pokemon than you." "Oh, well. I guess it just always came naturally to me and all my journeys just put me in situations where I had to take care of them. And hey, all of that's gonna give me the skills I need to do this." "Of course. You still chose to take care of them though and always did your best for them. Anyone who knows you, knows this is the perfect job for you." Ash smiled. "Yeah, I guess it is. Anyway, I gotta go get ready." "Oh, okay." Serena yawned. "I'm gonna go back to bed for a bit, so come give me a kiss goodbye." Ash smiled and went over to kiss her on the cheek. "Good luck, babe." "Thank you, Rena. See you later." Serena waved her man goodbye, as Ash walked out and closed the door behind him. The Kanto Queen still hadn't quite figured out what was next for her, but that was normal for her at this point. It took her long enough to figure out she wanted to perform in showcases in the first place. And look how that worked out for her in the end. Whatever she decided on eventually anyway, would definitely be something worthwhile that would make her happy. Serena never did anything she knew she wouldn't enjoy. Rhyhorn racing being a prime example of this. Yet, Serena still felt a little guilty, as she watched Ash leave for his first day of work. She would have to earn a living someday too. Serena sighed and scanned the room with lazy eyes. Then her gaze stopped on Ash's top shelf. His league trophy was still shining bright up there, but now it was complemented nicely with Serena's tiara, placed on top. Both were sights to behold, that many a trainer and performer alike would kill to have. But it had been a year and 6 months respectively since they had won them and the effect was starting to wear off a little now. They couldn't live off their legacies forever. And they had no intention of being celebrities, even though they sort of already were. All Ash and Serena wanted now was a quiet, normal life together. Serena flopped her head down into the pillow and groaned. Growing up was hard. Achieving your dreams wasn't all it was cracked up to be. But, perhaps there were further dreams to achieve. Dreams, this young and already successful couple, weren't even aware of yet. Life wasn't over just because they had completed their teenage dreams. Serena pondered on it, as she fell back to sleep and tried to find the right answers. Some time later, Ash was fully dressed and ready to go. Delia had packed him a lunchbox and handed it to him on the way out. "Have a good day, Ashy, I just know you're going to be amazing." Delia squished his cheeks and Ash grimaced. "Mum, stop treating me like a baby. I'm a grown-up now. Right, yes. Sorry, honey. I'm just so proud of you. Thanks, Mum. Gotta go now. Okay. Give me a hug first. Ash sighed and reached over to hug her. See ya, Mum. Look after Rena for me, yeah? He said, as he hugged her quickly and moved towards the front door. Of course. Take care. Ash was already on his way now. I want to hear all about it when you get back, she shouted after him. Ash turned back and nodded and said goodbye. He made his way up the pathway to the lab, where Professor Oak was standing and waiting, expecting his arrival. Ah, Ash. My dear boy, I'm so glad you decided to take the job. Now, let me take you over to the daycare center and show you your first job for the day. We have a particularly poorly Vulpix that needs looking after. Bless it. I'm sure you'll know how to best care for it though. They walked over to the center, while the professor explained more about the ins and outs of the job. As they entered, they saw a young woman about Ash's age and a man facing away from them, in a white lab coat, bent over and examining the poorly Vulpix. The man turned around when he heard Professor Oak clear his throat. Ash grinned and immediately went over to him. Brock. What are you doing here? They bumped fists. Well, sometimes I'm called out to look after sick Pokemon, and this poor little Vulpix is running a pretty nasty high fever and needs proper medical care. So, Professor Oak called me to help. Alright, gotcha. So what do you need me to do, Brocco? Your job today will be to assist Brock in anything he needs, to make Vulpix better again, intervened Professor Oak. You'll also have to make sure the other Pokemon are well fed and watered. And you must attend to any of their other needs too, of course. Think you can do that, Ash? Yeah, sure. Don't worry, Ash. I'll guide you through it all. It'll be just like old times, reassured Brock. And you will have the lovely Sophie here to help. It's her first day too, said Professor Oak, motioning towards the young lady, who stood shyly behind them. Ash waved at her welcomingly. Hi, I'm Ash Ketchum, right? Finished Sophie. Yeah. How did you know? Oh, well, duh. You're only one of the most famous guys in Pallet, after you won the league last year. I watched the whole tournament. Used to be a trainer myself actually, but I gave it up. Much better suited to looking after Pokemon. And I was never gonna be as good as you, but it's an absolute pleasure to be working with a Pokemon master. Sophie's eyes sparkled with admiration, but Ash just laughed nervously and coyly played it down. Oh, well, I just got lucky, but, thanks, and, yes, it's a pleasure to meet you too, Sophie. Sophie shook his hand and blushed a little. Right, well, I shall leave you all to it. Please report back to me at the end of the day, how each of the Pokemon are. Good luck, said Professor Oak. Professor Oak left and then with the introductions out of the way, they got straight to work. Brock spent the morning attending to the sick Vulpix, whilst Ash and Sophie assisted any way they could, while also keeping a caring eye on all the other Pokemon. The morning flew by and then before they knew it, lunchtime had arrived. Unsurprisingly, Ash was looking forward to this part of the day the most and wasted no time in emptying the contents of his lunchbox. Except, something pressing was on his mind now, so he wasn't half as keen as he usually would be to tuck into lunch. Ash, Brock and Sophie were sitting in the lunchroom together, but Ash made sure he was sat right next to Brock. Hey, Brocco? Said Ash, in a slightly annoying, elongated voice. Mumbled Brock, with a mouthful of a cheese sandwich. Can we have one of our man-to-man talks, please? Brock swallowed his food and raised an eyebrow. Is it gonna be about Serena again? Ash scratched the back of his head. Was it really that predictable now? Maybe. Brock laughed. Ever since Ash and Serena got together, Ash had never stopped talking about her and their relationship with Brock. Ash needed advice and lots of it, and Brock was the best teacher for it. He perhaps known more than anyone else how difficult it was to find the one. But now he was a bit of a love guru. So, what's on your mind this time then? Everything okay? Yeah, we're good. Really good in fact, but, well. Ash looked over at Sophie and then back at Brock. He didn't want her hearing this next part, so he whispered it in Brock's ear. We still haven't done it yet and Serena really wants to. Brock scoffed. I told you, Ash. Just relax and let it happen naturally. If you overthink it too much, then you're not gonna enjoy it. Sex is the ultimate form of intimacy. The final evolution in an intimate relationship, if you will. You just need to allow yourself to cross that threshold. Sophie's eyes widened a little. Ash and Brock looked over at her and smiled awkwardly. Sophie had no real idea what they were talking about and just continued to eat her lunch, with a confused look on her face. Ash and Brock looked back at each other and talked a little quieter. Well, that's the thing, Brock. I think I am ready, or at least I will be soon. So, what's this talk really about then? Ash took a deep breath. Okay. So, it's Serena's birthday next month and I want to do something really special for her, to show how much I appreciate her. But you know me, Brock. I don't really understand romance like you do. I want to do something really romantic, but I haven't got a clue. Brock sighed and put his sandwich down. Ash, I love you like a brother, but you can't keep asking me how to woo your girlfriend. I know you're a late bloomer, but you've really got to think for yourself now, man. It's gotta come from you, from the heart. I can't tell you what to do. Only you'll know, because you know Serena best. But the one thing I will say? Ash listened closely and looked like a nodding dog. You gotta go big. Do something you know she'll love. Something that means something to her. Something she'll never forget. Ash was astounded at how simple Brock made it all out to be. Yet, he still wanted it to be perfect and went into deep thought about it. Brock chuckled at his romantic naivety. Don't think about it too much though, lover boy. It'll come naturally, trust me. Ash took a big bite out his sandwich and chewed on it vigorously. After a few more mouthfuls, something suddenly lit up in his brain. Oh. Yes. Yes. He suddenly exclaimed. What is it? Asked Brock. Ash just tapped the side of his nose and tipped his hat down, in a sort of triumphant way. That's for me to know, my friend, but thanks, Brock. I owe you one. Brock looked a little relieved, but ultimately happy, that Ash had finally figured it out. He was learning. Brock got back to his sandwich and finished eating the last of it. Don't mention it. Now, time to get back to work. Ash and Brock got straight back to where they left off before lunch. Sophie soon followed, but was curious about what they were talking about. She didn't catch much, but she got the gist that Ash was talking about some kind of girl. Whoever she was anyway, she was a very lucky girl, thought Sophie. Ash was a real catch and she couldn't believe she was actually going to be working with such a big celebrity. Well, big in Pallet Town at least. She watched as Ash walked out and was still absolutely starstruck by him. The afternoon dragged on for what felt like forever, but eventually everyone collectively managed to nurse the sick Vulpix back to full health. The other Pokémon were looked after too and Professor Oak was pleased with the report. Then the clock finally struck 5 p.m. Home time. Ash waved goodbye to Brock and Sophie and whistled the whole way home, twirling his house keys happily. Not only did his first day of work go swimmingly and all the Pokémon were healthy and happy, but he had also come up with the perfect idea for Serena's birthday. With a little helpful nudge from Brock, he smiled to himself and strode up to the front door. Then he turned the key in the lock and stepped inside. Serena and Delia were in the kitchen making dinner, with Mr. Mime reluctantly taking the day off, when Ash announced he was home. Serena dropped everything she was doing and rushed out to greet him. She tackled him into a hug and kissed him like she hadn't seen him for a week. Oh, Ash, I missed you. Ash kissed her back and smiled. Ah, I missed you too, Rena. Being apart from you for a day was actually a very strange feeling. Ah, I bet. But I'm here now. How was your first day, handsome? Oh, it was brilliant, Rena. We looked after a sick Vulpix and made it all better. It felt so good to help. Oh, that's so lovely. Well done, babe. Thanks, babe. And you'll never believe this, but Brock was there too. Oh, really? What was he doing there? Well, it turns out he gets called out to the daycare center sometimes, to look after sick Pokémon. I'm just glad he was there on my first day. He's really such a good friend. Yeah, he is. And Olivia is lovely too. And oh, that reminds me. She keeps asking to go on a double date. Would you be able to do next weekend? Okay. Yeah, sure, splendid. We're going to an all-you-can-eat buffet, so I'm sure you'll love it. That sounds almost as good as kissing you, he replied, nearly salivating at the mouth. Ash kissed her again and wrapped his arms around her. They both giggled. Serena was just as delicious as any of Ash's favorite things to eat, and for a second, they almost forgot they weren't alone, as Delia came out with plates of hot food. "Dinner time. Lovebirds," she chimed. Ash and Serena reluctantly let go of each other and sat down to eat. Delia and Serena had made a scrumptious-looking pasta bake. Ash tucked right in and paid compliments to the chefs almost immediately. "So, how was your day, Rena?" asked Ash, with a mouthful of pasta. Serena just about understood what he was saying and laughed a little. "Not too bad. I just helped your mom around the house and obviously helped cook dinner too, thanks for asking." "That's right. Serena's been a big help today," added Delia. "Thank you, Serena." "No problem, Delia." Ash smiled at them both. He was happy to see the two most important people in his life had had a good day together and got along so well in general. Delia had taken Serena under her wing, like she was the daughter she never had. She could see how happy she made Ash too, so was more than happy to have her around. But, as Ash shoveled in the last forkful of pasta, he saw Serena had gone a little quiet. Serena was finished too and got up to take her plate out. Ash jogged over to her and put an arm around her, as they put their plates in the kitchen sink. Ash offered to wash up and Serena appreciated it and let him do it, as she leaned against the kitchen table and watched him. "Everything okay, babe?" asked Ash, looking back at her and starting to scrub the plates. Yeah. Just thinking. About what? Oh, the future." "Oh, I see. Well, today is the start of us moving up in the world, Rena. Now that I've got a job, we can really start planning things. The sky's the limit, as they say." "Exactly. I just wish I was making progress with you," she mumbled quietly. Ash stopped scrubbing and turned to Serena. No, don't worry, babe. There's no set timer for these things. Look how long it took me to take the job." "I know, Ash. I just don't want you holding all the burden in the relationship." Serena looked away from him. Ash shook his head and charged over to grab Serena's hands. "Hey, no, look at me, Rena." Serena turned back and Ash saw her eyes had gotten a bit puffy. "Listen to me. You will find your calling in life. I promise. You're forgetting that it was only 6 months ago that you became Kanto Queen. It's bound to take a while for you to figure out what's next. And look at me. It took me a whole year after I won the league to finally get where I am today. I know it's scary, but life finds a way to show you the right path in the end. And I've been down more than I can count. Trust me, Rena." Serena nodded and sniffled. "Yeah, I guess you're right. I suppose, maybe I am being a little harsh on myself." "You are, babe. But everything's going to work out just fine, I promise." "I hope so. I just wish I was as sure as you and I could catch some of that infectious positivity of yours." Ash smiled. "It will come to you, and if not, I'll just do another good luck spell, like I did at the summer camp. That should do the trick, remember? Pain go away. Now this time, give the amazing Serena all my positivity and love in the world. Hey presto." Ash acted as if he was some kind of wizard and pretended to conjure up a complicated magic spell. Serena laughed at how silly he looked. "Hey, there's my favorite sound in the whole world." Serena blushed. "Well, of course I remember the spell. How could I ever forget? It's the reason I wanted to find you again. And funnily enough, I think it actually worked. I barely felt any pain at all after you helped me up." Ash was delighted to hear it and cupped Serena's face in his hands. "And I'll always be here to pick you up whenever you need me." He kissed her. "Now, promise me you'll be kinder to yourself from now on?" "Okay, fine." Serena rolled her eyes playfully. "All right, now give me a hug." Serena let herself fall into his arms and then all her worries poofed away and returned to the deepest crevices of her mind. "Everything all right in here, you two?" asked Delia, as she brought her plate out. "Yeah. It's just been a long day, Mum. But today is the start of a new beginning. And we're gonna be just fine. Aren't we, Rena?" She nodded happily and had a more determined look on her face now. If there was anyone who could psyche her up and dig her out of her own hole of insecurity, it was Ash. Always Ash. Serena made a vow to herself that she wasn't going to give up. She was going to keep looking for her dream job. No matter how long it took. The words, "never give up until the end," resonated through her, as a certain someone once said, once upon a time ago. And with that, All was well for the rest of the evening. Ash and Serena were cuddled up on the living room couch, while Delia had fallen asleep next to them. Ash looked up at the clock and saw Serena looked sleepy, so he decided it was time to wind down. He wrapped a blanket around his mum and then held his hand out for Serena to hold. They went to Ash's room, as they had done every night for the past month now. Serena got into bed first, while Ash wasn't quite ready to call it a night yet. He sat at the edge of the bed and got his phone out and started to search for something. Serena yawned and tilted her head in a quizzical manner. "Whatcha doing, babe?" "Oh, I'm just looking up something for work." "Oh, okay. Well, come to bed when you're ready." They stayed up a little longer, before Serena's eyelids started to get very heavy. Doing chores all day had really taken it out of her. Ash clearly wasn't tired yet though and was still on his phone. Serena pouted and wondered why Ash was so glued to his phone and not to her. She was feeling needy in her sleepiness and wanted to fall asleep with him, but she was too tired to protest. "I'm gonna go to sleep now, Ash. Don't stay up too late, okay? You have work again tomorrow." Ash turned around and smiled. "I know. Don't worry, Rena. I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Sleep well." He leaned towards her and kissed her goodnight. Serena closed her eyes and smiled back. "Okay. You better be. Night." Serena entered a deep slumber, while Ash continued to scroll and tapped a few buttons on his phone. His face beamed in the phone light, ecstatic at what he was seeing on his screen. Ash looked over at Serena and rubbed her leg lovingly. Then he tapped a few more buttons and looked even happier, when a confirmation email came through seconds later. He opened it and read in big bold letters. "Purchase. 2 standard tickets to Kalos flight booked with Kanto Airlines. Day, time. Friday 16th of October, 6 p.m. Sum total. $200 POKEDOLLARS. All booked on the day before Serena's birthday." Ash swiped the email away and put his phone on charge. It was Ash's turn now to admire how cute Serena looked asleep, as he turned the bedside lamp off and snuggled up next to her. He slept with a smug expression on his face. Ash had it all planned out now and he was sure Serena was going to love it. It was Friday afternoon, as Ash found himself clock watching at work, feeling like time was ticking backwards. He had been working at the daycare center for a good month now and was getting rather good at his new job. Ash had finished all his tasks for the week and all the Pokemon were happy. So, he waited patiently for the big hand to reach 12 and the little hand to reach 5. Sophie was watching too, not as eager to leave, but still keen to get home. "All right. You two can get off now. Well done on another great week's work. Enjoy your weekends," said Professor Oak. "Thanks, Professor. See you next week," said Ash. Ash rushed out of the center into a little jog, full of excitement and recalling the plan for the weekend, step by step in his head. "Hey, where are you off to in such a rush?" asked Sophie, trying to catch up with him. Ash turned around and slowed down a little, but still jogged onwards. "Oh, didn't I tell you? I'm going away to Kalos for the weekend." "Oh, why?" "Well, it's my girlfriend's birthday tomorrow and she's originally from Kalos. So, I thought I'd take her there as a birthday surprise." "Oh, girlfriend?" Ash had never mentioned a girlfriend before and Sophie almost looked a little disappointed at the mention of it. She had been subtly flirting around him for the past couple weeks and Ash hadn't even noticed once, but now it made a little more sense to Sophie. Ash and Serena were practically celebrities, albeit not very famous ones, but hadn't gone public or anything, so nobody other than their closest friends knew they were even together. They preferred to keep it all private away from the prying press. "Yeah? Have I never mentioned her before?" Sophie shook her head. "Oh, well. I'm sure you would have heard of her. Serena Durant? Kanto Queen?" "Oh. I might have heard of her, yeah. Well, I've got to get going. Got a plane to catch. See you next week, Sophie." Ash dashed off and wasted no time to get back home. When he arrived, Serena had already packed and was waiting for him. He had told her he was taking her somewhere for the weekend, but he hadn't said where exactly. That was a surprise. Ash rushed in and quickly kissed Serena and went straight to his room to collect his luggage. He had it all ready too and dragged it back out with him. "Right. Are you ready, babe?" "Yeah, I've been ready all day. But I'd still like to have some idea where exactly we're going." "Ah, now, come on, Rena. That would spoil it, and anyway, You'll find out when we get to the airport. Serena sighed. Okay. I'm trusting you, Ash, don't worry, Rena. You're gonna love it, just make sure you've got your passport. I've got it. Serena waved it about and put it in her bag. Okay. Well, let's go then. Gotta be there by 5:45. Ash and Serena said goodbye to Delia and rushed off to the airport. The good thing was, it wasn't too far from Pallet and they managed to get there with time to spare. As they entered the boarding gate, Serena overheard the announcement of the destination of the plane and gasped. Kalos. We're going to Kalos? Ash could barely contain his excitement at her finding out. Yep. Surprised. I mean, I would have preferred if I could have really surprised you when we got there. But, yeah. I thought you'd like it. I can tell you're missing home and your mom. Oh, Ash. That's so sweet of you to think of. I really have been homesick, so this is perfect. She hugged him. Ash hugged her back, but was conscious of the time. You're welcome. But as much as I'm enjoying this hug, we need to board now, like, right now. Oh, right. Yes, of course. They walked through the runway and boarded the plane. Once they were safely strapped in, Serena couldn't contain her excitement either. She had to know more and ask several questions, one after the other. Ash just shook his head and wagged his finger. Nah, babe. You're gonna have to wait and see. I have a few things planned, but it's a big birthday surprise, so my lips are sealed. Okay? He mimicked zipping his mouth up and laughed. Serena pouted and tried to probe it some more, but ultimately gave up after the first half an hour of the flight. A couple hours later, they had fallen asleep, with Serena resting her head against Ash's. The day had caught up on them and they managed to get in a few good hours of sleep, before touching down at midnight. They yawned and carried their luggage out of the plane, into the same airport where they had their first kiss, or rather Serena kissed Ash. But now they were together, it could be seen as their first kiss anyway. So, I know you said everything was a surprise, but I would kind of like to know where we're staying. I mean, my mom would probably let us stay around hers. No need, babe, I've got something better sorted. Oh, you have? Of course. You didn't think I'd bring you all the way here and not plan a birthday weekend to remember for my queen? Ash looked back at her and winked. Oh, well, I suppose not. You really didn't have to though, Ash. What do you mean? Of course I did. Now shut up and follow me. Serena laughed and did as she was told. They didn't have to walk too far across Lumios City to their living quarters for the weekend. Serena welcomed the sight of the Lumios Tower, and even though she had seen it many times before, she was more than happy to see it again. And it looked just as beautiful as ever, in the French night sky. Then Ash suddenly stopped and Serena bumped into him, as she was too distracted by the home comforts coming back to her. We're here, announced Ash. Serena looked confused. How could they be there already? They only walked a few kilometers. And then Serena got her answer, when she fixed her focus on what they were standing at the entrance of. Serena stared in disbelief. She babbled something. Will this do, my queen? Asked Ash, cheekily. But, this is the fanciest hotel in Lumios City. How could you have possibly afforded it? Oh, well, I still have quite a bit of prize money left, don't I? And I did get my first paycheck from Professor Oak the other week, so, it's really not a problem. Are you happy with it? Happy with it? Of course I am. Oh, Ash, you are the best boyfriend ever? She kissed him and balanced on one leg, putting the other in the air and holding onto him tight. Serena would have been happy if they just camped out or stayed at a Pokemon Center like the old days, but this was really sprinkling some pizzazz on their trip. She felt spoiled. Well, I'm not really great with romance, but Brock said to do something you'd really love and something that would mean something to you. Something big. And I knew this would be pretty big. So, happy birthday, Rena. Wow, I don't know what to say. I just love why. Serena quickly stopped herself from finishing that sentence and thought better of it. It was still too soon. You love. Oh, I just love Lumios City of course, said Serena, laughing nervously. Ah, me too. It's one of the most beautiful cities I've been to for sure. But come on, let's check in now, yeah? Serena squealed with delight. Oh, yes. 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 They checked in and unpacked all their stuff. The hotel room itself was top of the range and it was like they had their own mini apartment for the weekend, complete with an ensuite bathroom. There wasn't much time to fully appreciate it, however, as tiredness crept up on them once again and they slumped onto the bed. It wasn't long until they were fast asleep after that. The next morning, they awoke to the sound of birds chirping outside. Ash turned over to Serena and grinned excitedly. Today's the day. He leapt out of bed way too quickly, to Serena's surprise. Hey, come back. It's my birthday and I want a morning cuddle with my baby, pouted Serena. Aw. Sorry, Rena, I'll have to owe it to you later. There's far too much to do today. I've planned out the whole day for you, it's gonna be fun. Okay. Promise you'll cuddle me later? Said Serena, with puppy dog eyes. Of course. Whatever the birthday girl wants. But first, I'm gonna get a shower real quick. Order whatever you like for breakfast from room service. You know I'll eat anything and it's all paid for already, so order whatever you want and as much as you like. Oh, okay thanks. Ash came over and kissed her cheek. This is gonna be the best day. Just sit back and relax, okay? They smiled at each other lovingly and then Ash rushed off to the ensuite bathroom. Serena switched on the TV to see what was happening in the beautiful region of Kalos today. It was quite surreal to be back home, after everything she had been through with Ash over the last couple years. She loved living with Ash and she'd grown to love Kanto as a new home, but she still had so much love for Kalos. Serena figured that there'd be other chances to come back to Kalos again in the future. Yet, she was still happy, regardless of whether she would get to come back or not. Her true home at heart was with Ash at the end of the day. Serena was following a news report about a showcase competition that was taking place later today in the city, when she noticed Ash had left his towel hanging on a rack. Serena pondered on it for a bit, then she quickly threw the bed covers off and took the towel off the rack. But then she hesitated again for a second. If Ash didn't have a towel, maybe he'd come out naked, she immediately fantasized in her head. She smirked at the thought of it. What a lovely birthday present that would be. Would Ash actually do that though? Probably not, she concluded. He'd probably just shout for it. Ash still wasn't ready yet, as far as Serena knew. She shrugged and reluctantly made her way over to the ensuite and slowly creaked the door open. Her head peeked through gingerly and she gasped at what she saw. Through the steam of the shower, Serena's eyes followed up Ash's long-toned legs, to his perfectly shaped bum, to his manly broad back. Serena bit her lip and groaned, as he washed his hair and got himself wet all over. Why did he have to be so goddamn fit and irresistible? She stared a little ferally for a while, almost in a state of disbelief at how sexy his naked body was, but then he suddenly began to turn around. Serena panicked and quickly threw the towel into the bathtub, next to the shower and turned her head back behind the door. She completely freaked out, thinking Ash may have seen her and got startled. But, Ash really had no idea she was even there and started humming a tune unknowingly. Phew. Serena would have loved to have been bestowed with the whole package and seen the front too, but she wasn't sure Ash would have appreciated her peeping on him like that. Serena sat down and had to take a breather on the bed. Ash had literally taken her breath away in seconds, and it was so totally unexpected. She couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen, but decided she should order something to eat, to take her mind off it. She could easily have Ash for breakfast right now and join him in the shower, but she had to respect his boundaries. At least until he was ready for that kind of thing. Serena shook the thought away and decided to order some croissants and pancakes. 5 minutes later, Ash came out of the bathroom with his towel wrapped around him. He did wonder for a second how the towel got in the bathtub, but quickly dismissed the thought. Ash had more important things on his mind. Your turn, Rena. And hurry, I've got a few surprises lined up for you today, so there's no time to waste. Oh, okay. I'll go now then. But I've just ordered some food, though. So listen out for it, will you? Of course. I'll have it all ready for you when you come out. Serena smiled and thanked him. Then she took her towel and clothes for the day with her into the ensuite. Sometime later, they were washed and dressed and the food had arrived. Then once they had eaten, Ash hurriedly whisked Serena out of the hotel and towards her first surprise. He guided her into the city center and headed towards a coffee shop. Then Ash stopped and simply just stood back and smiled at her, with crossed arms. Serena looked confused. So, what's the surprise then? Ash just directed his head towards the coffee shop and looked smug. Serena still wasn't getting it. What was so special about a coffee shop? She examined it thoroughly and then her eyes widened, when she realized she'd missed the obvious. People were drinking coffee outside and right at the front of the shop was someone reading a newspaper, who Serena had not seen for over half a year. "Mama!" she shouted, rushing over to her. Grace turned her head and put the newspaper down. She smiled and got up to hug her daughter. "Took you long enough to notice I was here," joked Grace. "Happy birthday, honey." "Well, when Ash said he had a surprise for me, it didn't expect it to be you. But I'm so happy to see you again, Mama." "Me too. And yes, this was all Ash's doing. He asked me to meet you here for your birthday last week and there was no way I was missing a chance to see my little girl again." "Ah, thank you, Mama." They hugged again and then Grace looked over at Ash. "Now, Ash, I hope you've kept your promise and have been looking after my daughter well?" "Of course, Grace. My mom and I have helped her settle into Pallet Town. And I've even got a job now." "Oh, nice. The Pokemon Daycare Center job, I presume?" Ash nodded. "Well, I'm impressed. You've really matured a lot, Ash, and I can see why Serena likes you so much." She paused. "I just have one question." Ash listened attentively. "How serious is the relationship now?" Ash was about to answer, but then Serena answered for him. "Well, it's still early days, Mama. But we're planning for a future together, right babe?" "Yeah, I'll admit that I've needed to take things slow at first. I mean, I've never been in a relationship before. But what Serena and I have is strong. Strong enough to last. And I want nothing more than to be with her and make a life with her. So, yes. We're planning a future together. Definitely." Grace took a moment to process it with an emotionless expression on her face, but then she nodded and smiled in satisfaction. "Well, it has only been 7 months and it's better not rush these things. So, I completely understand where you're currently at. And as long as you're happy, Serena, I'm happy. You two seem to be on the right track anyway." "Oh, yes. I couldn't be happier, Mama. Ash is my world and I'm his." Serena kissed him in front of her mum for the first time. It was a little odd for Grace to see at first, but she could tell they were genuine and her motherly instincts were telling her that her daughter was in very good hands. "Well, I'm satisfied then. And I've never known anyone to make Serena as happy as you do, Ash. So, please keep it up as much as you can." "Ah, well, I'll always do everything I can to be the best boyfriend possible," reassured Ash. He held on to Serena's hand under the table and patted it. Grace nodded in approval and motioned for them to sit down. They all sat down at the table and had a long talk to catch up properly. Grace was obviously particularly interested in what was next for Serena. She always wanted the best for her and couldn't help but be a little concerned that she still hadn't figured out her next step in life yet. But she still had every faith in her to find further success and today wasn't the day to worry about it. Serena deserved to enjoy her day carefree. After their chat, Grace and Serena headed into the busier end of the city center. Ash had to dash off somewhere and promised he would be back as soon as he could. Meanwhile, Grace treated Serena to some birthday presents, including an expensive new blue dress. Now lunchtime was fast approaching. It was time for Ash's second surprise of the day. While Grace and Serena were shopping, Ash had been preparing something. He returned as promised and met Grace and Serena by a park bench. "Okay. Are you ready for your second surprise of the day now, Rena?" asked Ash. He got excited and clapped his hands together. Serena nodded enthusiastically. "All right. Well, this one's gonna be a big one, so I'm going to tie a blindfold around your eyes, okay?" Okay." Ash carefully wrapped it around her eyes and made sure she couldn't see. "Now, grab my hand. You can trust me, okay? I trust you, babe." Ash guided her further into the park, with Grace following closely behind. Serena heard a few whispers and hushes and then she felt Ash's hands, taking the blindfold off. "Surprise!" shouted Ash and Grace. As Serena's eyes adjusted to the light, she saw two very familiar blonde siblings first. Bonnie and Clemont stood out in front, with more friends behind them. Shauna, Tierno and Trevor had all made a special effort to come too. A picnic was laid out in front of them, with a few balloons and banners too. Bonnie was first to approach Serena. "Happy birthday, Serena," said Bonnie. She came over to hug her and Ash. "Ah, thank you, Bonnie. Serena had noticed she looked even taller again this time. Have you got taller again? Bonnie nodded happily. Oh, you just don't stop growing, do you? You'll be taller than me soon, she joked. Hee hee, maybe, but I really am growing up, aren't I, big brother? Clement nodded proudly. I'm actually a Pokemon trainer now too, right, Dedenne? Serena and Bonnie looked down at Dedenne in Bonnie's pouch, who happily nuzzled Bonnie in response. Serena smiled. Oh, wow, that's wonderful, Bonnie, congratulations. Thank you. Ash said his congratulations too and ruffled her hair, like a proud dad. Everyone else came over to wish her happy birthday as well, and then they all sat down to begin the picnic. There was a nice variety of food to eat, from sandwiches, to fruit, to sweet and savory things. Everyone had brought some food to contribute, so there was plenty to go around. So, whose idea was all of this then? Asked Serena, looking very curious. Well, who do you think? Answered Grace, smiling broadly. Serena looked around at everyone and then she saw Ash smiling smugly again. Oh, of course, I should have known, yep. All my idea, Rena, I told you, I've planned everything. I want this birthday weekend to be perfect. Ah. Well, I'm loving it so far, babe, now come give me a kiss. Ash complied happily, but did feel slightly awkward, as this was the first time kissing in front of their friends. And they did stare a little, as they were a bit stunned at the sight of it. Bonnie and Clement in particular, would never have thought they would have ever seen it, always knowing Ash to be quite oblivious to Serena's affections for him. But, Ash had changed so much since they had traveled together, so everyone just had to get up to speed with it. Bonnie was still absolutely delighted though and had always wanted them to get together. Clement was more indifferent to it, however, and was just happy his friends were happy. Once everyone had got used to Ash and Serena actually being a proper couple now, they continued to eat and catch up with one another. There were lots of questions about their relationship, of course, and talk of what everyone was currently up to was a popular topic of conversation too. When everyone had finished eating, Serena remembered that she had some macaroons in her bag. She figured it would make the perfect dessert for the occasion and offered them out to everyone. But, she hesitated in giving one to Ash and decided to have a bit of fun first. She teased him and waved one around him, making him want it more. Ah, no, come on, Rena. You know I can't get enough of your macaroons. Let me have it, please, he pleaded. Hee hee, okay, but only if you let me feed it to you. Ash laughed. Sure. Whatever the birthday girl wants, he said, in a slow voice. Serena smirked and got up. Ash looked at her with a confused expression. What are you doing, Rena? Well, the birthday girl wants to sit on your lap to feed you. Serena giggled mischievously. Okay. Ash was a little unsure of doing this in front of everyone, but he couldn't really say no, especially as Serena was so eager to do it. Serena sat on his lap and began to feed the macaroon to him slowly. To Ash's surprise, he actually really enjoyed it and didn't feel awkward at all anymore. He let the moment just happen organically. The way to Ash's heart was always through food, after all. And from the first time Serena gave Ash a batch of her macaroons, he had become very fond of her indeed. The only difference between then and now was that she was his girlfriend now. A girlfriend, feeding him delicious treats. Life couldn't get much better than that for Ash. After the picnic was finished and everything was packed away, Grace needed to get back home to the Rhyhorn and was the first to leave. She gave Serena a hug and kiss and said her goodbyes. Then Tierno and Trevor left not long after. Whereas, Shauna opted to stay behind and have a girl talk with Serena, while Bonnie and Clement stayed too and talked to Ash about his new job. They decided to walk and talk back to the hotel, as they all took a stroll around the city together. Shauna was particularly interested in the juicy details of how Ash and Serena made the transition from friends to lovers over time and let her curiosity get the better of her. So, you finally got him after 6 years. It must feel like a dream, gushed Shauna. Haha, yeah. You could say that, Shauna, and honestly, I might not have confessed to him if you hadn't told me to stop wasting time and just do it, so thank you for that. Ah, no, don't mention it, I'm just happy it all worked out for you too. No, really. Thank you, but yeah, it really has. I mean, it's been 7 months now, so everything is really starting to feel like it's piecing together now. We're both serious about each other and I can definitely see a future together with him. It's just a matter of patience, really. And I'm sure I'll figure out what I'm going to do next soon too. Shauna nodded and was content, pleased that her best friend was so happy. But she still had a few pressing questions. She wasted no time in getting to the point too. So, would you say you're both in love then? Serena stopped in her tracks for a second and looked a little tongue-tied. Then she continued walking and chuckled a little. Well, you know I've been in love with him for a long time already, but I'm not sure Ash is yet. Oh. Have you not said the L word yet? Serena shook her head. No. I mean, it almost slipped out of my mouth a few times, but I just don't know if Ash is ready for it yet. And I don't know how he'd even react. I get that, Serena. But it has to be said sometime. And you should feel comfortable saying it, or anything really for that matter, after 7 months. I know. I just don't want to scare him away, you know? Ash is already an amazing boyfriend and he's really learned a lot about romance and how to treat a girl recently and is getting better and better by the day. So, I just don't want to ruin that by rushing him into things he's not comfortable with yet. What do you mean by things he's not comfortable with? Serena looked over at Ash quickly, who was none the wiser to what they were talking about and deep in conversation. She still made a conscious effort to talk quieter, though. Well, the thing is, we haven't quite done certain things yet. Shauna raised an eyebrow in interest. Certain things? Well, we've done all the basic things. Like kissing, making out, cuddling, getting handsy. But we haven't had sex? Shauna was always quick to the mark with these sorts of things and Serena was thankful for it, so she didn't have to say it herself. Exactly. Well, I can't say I've ever had that problem with past boyfriends. They've always been very eager to get in my pants, as you know. They both laughed. I know, but I guess Ash is just different like that. He's never been the type that's just after one thing and he used to be incredibly dense about girls in general anyway. But I think he definitely wants to have sex with me. That's not the problem. He's just a little shy about it, I suppose. I mean, there was one night where he really wasn't his usual dense self and he made it pretty clear he wanted me. And it really felt like he wanted to go all the way right there and then. But nothing happened past touching. Serena made sure not to mention the personal details of the outcome, out of respect for Ash. She had said enough there to get some clarity on it from Shauna. Well, he's definitely really into you then, Serena. I think some boys are just different and actually need time before jumping into bed straight away. Yeah, Ash is definitely a very different kind of guy. And I love him for that. But I just wish he'd take the fucking shackles off and fuck me already, said Serena, frustratingly. Shauna took a step back and looked at Serena in awe. She couldn't believe she had just said that. Her mouth was wide open in shock, but it quickly turned into a wide grin and then they were both in fits of giggles. Oh mon Dieu. Serena Durand. Someone's a little horny, huh? She teased, nudging her playfully. Shush. No well. I mean, a woman has needs, and I want him badly, so, yes, maybe a little. Serena rolled her eyes and sighed, a little surprised at herself that she admitted it so easily, but she could really tell Shauna anything, so she didn't mind much. Here, sister, not just a little though. You're absolutely gagging for it, girl. Serena was a little taken aback by how witty that comment was, but she was used to Shauna's directness by now, and she certainly couldn't deny it. I mean, yeah. Can you blame me? I've been waiting a long time for it, and hey, it's my birthday. Which means, I may or may not have thought about us doing it tonight. A girl can dream anyway. They both looked over briefly at Ash and laughed again and linked arms, as if they were walking home drunk together. Drunk on giggles. Ash, Bonnie and Clement looked across at them in bewilderment, but they just kept giggling. Here's hoping it happens tonight, girl, whispered and squealed Shauna in Serena's ear. Well, you never know, and I might have something that could help. Oh, what's that then? Well, I bought a new dress earlier, one that doesn't leave much to the imagination and will show Ash everything he's missing out on, Serena whispered back and winked. Ooh, he won't stand a chance. Serena was glad she finally had someone to talk to about her deep desires and needs. It was just so relieving that Shauna was there and she could have a laugh about it with her, without any judgment. So, how's your love life then, Shauna? Any new boys on the block? There must be a long line, after how well you did at the Indigo Plateau showcase." Shauna looked at her as if to say, "I thought you'd never ask." She spent the next 10 minutes or so, nattering on endlessly about this new guy she had been seeing, until they found themselves standing at the hotel entrance. Bonnie and Clement said their goodbyes and headed back home, which was only around the corner for them, of course. Then Shauna gave Serena a big hug and wished her luck with her sexual hopes with Ash. She even gave her a few seduction tips, having already engaged in a few sexual relationships herself before. And then she too was on her way. Now it was just Ash and Serena again. "So, what next, handsome? Any more surprises?" asked Serena. She leant on Ash's shoulder and looked up at him. "Well, my queen," began Ash. He started to play with Serena's hair and gazed down at her fondly. "I'm taking you out tonight, and let's just say, I've made a very important reservation." I'll make sure to look my best then." Serena lifted her head up off his shoulder and kissed him. "But what time are we going? A girl needs time to look good, you know." Ash chuckled. "Oh, come on. You already look good, but it's booked for 8, and the time now is—" He checked his watch. 5:30, so we have some time. What do you want to do until then? Serena tapped her chin. "Well, you do owe me a cuddle from this morning, so we could start with that. Sound good to you?" "Sounds perfect." Ash and Serena walked through the entrance lobby and headed back up to their hotel room. As Saturday evening settled in, Ash and Serena were cuddled up in bed and watching one of Serena's favorite films. They were feeling very comfy and could have stayed as they were for the rest of the night, but the time was getting closer to 8 now. They both started to get ready about an hour before. Serena in the bathroom and Ash in the kitchen. Ash was dressed and ready within 15 minutes, as he finished buttoning up a smart white shirt and fixing a tie on, but he didn't fasten it all the way up to his neck and left it hanging a little. This was complete with sensible black trousers, a velvet purple blazer that he left open, and black shoes. All of which Delia had helped him buy beforehand and had been packed for the Kalos trip. The only thing left to do was apply some aftershave. He thought he should make an extra special effort tonight and did something he hardly ever did: dress up. Yet, he left his hair as it always was. Actually combing his hair was something Ash would never do, of course. But one thing he did do that was different was take his hat off, a little reluctantly. It just wouldn't go with everything else. Ash was waiting on the bed for Serena now, who had taken half an hour so far. He impatiently checked his watch every 2 minutes and tapped his foot. Ash was getting really hungry too and thought he'd just grab a quick snack from the kitchen. His stomach was the size of 2 sometimes, so he figured it wouldn't spoil his appetite. But then he stopped in his tracks when he heard the bathroom door click open. Serena stepped out. "Well, what do you think will I do?" she asked. Ash thought better of the snack now and turned around to see the real one behind him. Serena was wearing the new blue dress she mentioned to Shauna earlier, which hugged every single one of her curves. Ash just stared at her like a dumbstruck fool. What was it about Serena in tight dresses that turned Ash into a Neanderthal? He opened his mouth to respond, but only gibberish came out. Serena smirked and put her hands on her hips. This was exactly what she wanted. It didn't take much to unlock Ash's primal hormones nowadays. "Cat got your tongue again, babe?" Why yeah, why you could say that." "Well, I take it you like the dress then. I told you I'd look my best." And she really did. She had put sparkly blue eyeshadow, mascara and bright red lipstick on, to complement the dress and her own natural beauty. Serene had even put on special crescent moon and star earrings that dangled fabulously over her shoulders. This also drew attention to her freshly done, perfectly permed hair, with the symbolic blue ribbon she never let out of her sight, tied on top. She flicked her honey blonde locks and walked over to Ash. He checked her out from head to toe, starting from her crystal clear puddle blue eyes, to a blue choker she was wearing around her neck, which he had been so captivated by the last time she stood in front of him in a dress. He quickly took in the rest of her and then smiled. Ash didn't have time to stare at her all night, as much as he wanted to, so resisted her alluring charm as best he could. "Yeah, you look absolutely stunning. I can't believe you're my girl." Serena blushed and looked down at the floor. Her eyes flickered back up and down, into Ash's chestnut brown eyes she always got lost in. "Well, Thank you. I can't believe you're mine too. I mean, look at you. You're just such a gorgeous person. And I never realized how good you'd look in a shirt and tie. Serena brushed her hand across his shoulder. Wasn't expecting you to dress up. I like it. I like it a lot. Serena got her lustful little fix of Ash too and took the quick fleeting opportunity to scan her eyes all over him. It didn't matter what he wore in Serena's eyes, though. He somehow always looked incredibly and effortlessly sexy to her. Well, I had to go big, didn't I? I mean, I don't like wearing this tie much. He loosened it up more. But it's all for you. Serena smiled and reached her hands across to him to readjust it and then pushed it up. There. It shouldn't be uncomfortable now. You had it too tight, silly. Ah, right. Ash took a sigh of relief. Yeah, that's much better. Thank you. Still feels a bit weird wearing one though. They both laughed. Well, you can take it off later if you want. But, you look far too good right now to take it off too soon. I do really appreciate the effort though, babe. Thanks. Oh, I'm just glad you like it. Serena nodded and kissed his cheek, leaving some lipstick on it. Ash touched it and blushed a little. Serena giggled and then noticed a handkerchief sticking out of his pocket and used it to wipe the lipstick off. So, is it time now, my king? Ash checked his watch again. Yes, my queen. Are you ready? Yes, sir. Well then. Allons why, mon chéri, exclaimed Ash, in his usual terrible French accent. He had been practicing it in his head all day, but it still came out wrong. It was the thought that counted though, of course. Serena laughed and shook her head. She pronounced it the correct way for him and Ash just sighed and rolled his eyes. I'll never get it right. Anyway, may I escort you out? He held his arm out. You may, kind sir. They giggled and then Serena wrapped her arm around Ash's and they walked out of the hotel. The nightlife had come out in full swing across the city and Lumiose Tower was lit up spectacularly well under the stars. Ash and Serena walked arm in arm through the streets and passed by a few buskers, playing accordions. They dropped some loose change in their hats and continued on. Then as they entered the city center, they heard a live performance from another, more professional busker. She was singing Paparazzi in full voice and had attracted a large crowd of fans. Serena was itching to see the show and asked to stop for a bit. Ash was wary of the time, but didn't see why they couldn't fit it in, so was happy to take the detour. Plus, he knew Serena loved street performances of any kind, being a performer herself. So he really couldn't object. They arrived at the stage, just as the busker was hitting the chorus. 'Cause you know that, baby, I'm your biggest fan, I'll follow you until you love me. Papa Paparazzi baby, there's no other superstar, you know that I'll be. Your Papa Paparazzi promise I'll be kind but I won't stop until that boy is mine. Baby, you'll be famous, chase you down until you love me. Papa Paparazzi. Serena sang along under her breath and squeezed Ash's hand tight. Ash looked over at her and loved how much she was enjoying it, but then he saw the city center clock in the corner of his eye and realized they really needed to go. He didn't want to cut the fun short, but their reservation was too important to miss. Ash tapped Serena's arm and motioned to the clock. Serena wished they could stay longer, but she could tell this reservation was too good to miss. They walked onwards, while Serena kept asking where they were going the whole way, but Ash wasn't budging on it. Serena needn't ask so much anyway, as it was only 5 minutes later that she discovered where their date night was. The fanciest restaurant in Lumiose City. Amour Bay. Right next to the tower, with balconies that overlooked it at the perfect view. Serena was completely and utterly blown away that they were even setting foot in the place. She remained astounded in silent shock until they got inside. Ash, babe. Yes, Rena. You do realize this is the fanciest restaurant in the city, maybe even the whole of Kalos? Ash chuckled. Why, of course. We did travel through the whole region together and this place was one of the few places we never got to go to. Yeah, because it's the best of the best. Exactly. That's why it was such an important reservation. And before you say anything, don't worry about how much it cost. All that matters is you having the best birthday and being treated as you deserve. Serena was about to protest, but then couldn't help but admire the lengths Ash had gone to for her birthday. Besides, it's not like he didn't have the money. He still had the majority of his prize money left and his first month's work wages. It was money well spent, and Serena had to admit she was impressed, and it showed on her face, as a waiter escorted them to their table. They were some of the best seats in the house, as it was right by the balcony. There were tables outside too, but it was too cold to eat out there at this time of year. Ash and Serena took their seats and looked at the menu. Delicate music started playing, as violinists set the mood for the night, into a state of calm and tranquility. They spent a while deciding what they wanted, until Serena got an idea. "Hey, babe. I know it's a bit simple, but how about we just share a big plate of spaghetti and meatballs together? It could be just like that movie." Ash closed the menu and scrunched his nose up, trying to think of the movie she was talking about. "What movie?" "You know. The Disney movie with the two dogs." Ash shook his head. Movies weren't his strong point, especially not the kind Serena was referring to. "Oh, well, never mind. I'll show you it later. It's quite romantic actually." "Okay. Well, if spaghetti is what you want, spaghetti is what we'll get." Ash wasted no time calling the waiter over and ordered the food in haste. He was starving and really couldn't wait any longer. Thankfully, the waiting time wasn't too long and Ash's hunger was finally tamed. Serena always found Ash's strong sense of appetite quite amusing. She just wished his hunger for her was just as intensified and just as often. Serena had seen snippets of it, but not enough yet. Ash was eating rather fast, whereas Serena took her time a bit more. In all honesty, she really didn't care much for the food and what restaurant they went to. She just loved having an excuse to stare at her man's handsome face, all night long. Serena had her head in her hands, as she sighed and admired how cute he was eating the spaghetti. Then she suddenly giggled, as she noticed he had a little bolognese sauce on the corner of his mouth. It was then that Ash finally realized she was staring. "What?" mumbled Ash, with spaghetti sticking out of his mouth. Serena sighed again, but in a playful manner this time. "Oh, nothing. You've just got a little something, right there." Serena pointed to it and Ash quickly used a napkin to wipe it off. He thanked her and continued to chow down, but then stopped again, when he noticed she was still staring and grinning ear to ear. Ash smiled back and they both started to eat again, while looking into each other's eyes, with Ash even slowing down a bit. It was one of the most silent, intimate moments they had shared yet. They continued to twirl the spaghetti around their forks and sink their teeth into the meatballs, until it was all gone. It was quite seductive in a way. More so on Serena's part, as her sparkly eyes kept fluttering for Ash and she wrapped her mouth around the spaghetti slowly. After eating, they decided to make the most of the occasion and stretch the night out longer, with a stroll across the balcony. They were the only ones outside at that given moment and had perhaps the best possible view of Lumio's tower there could be. It glimmered and dazzled in the night, flashing different colors, as it gave a pre-light show for the night dwellers. Serena leaned on Ash's shoulder and then felt a piercing chill course through her. Looking good had a price in the freeze of the autumn dusk. Ash acted fast and wrapped his blazer around her and rubbed her arms to keep her warm. "Thanks, babe. It's been a fantastic birthday and this just tops it all off, and it's just such a heartwarming feeling to be home after so long and remember where it all started for us. Thank God you decided to come to Kalos." Ash chuckled. Serena tilted her head upwards and frowned a little. "Hey. What's so funny? That was a heartfelt moment, you know." "Oh. Yeah, sorry. I was just remembering the first day I arrived here. I never told you this before, but I actually fell down the air stairs when I got off the plane." Serena laughed. "Oh, really? Wow, who would have thought? I mean, it does definitely sound like you, I'll give you that." "Haha, yeah. I was just a little too overexcited and ended up stumbling into Kalos, literally, I guess." "Well, your time here wasn't so bad after all though, was it? Despite the start," joked Serena. "Oh, no, I mean, I didn't exactly achieve everything I wanted to here, but other than Kanto, this is probably my favorite region that I've ever been to. And I have no regrets, even though I lost the league." "Well, I should hope so, of course. The reality is, I got something so much better than a winner's trophy. I got you. Because, I never would have met you again if I didn't come here and I can't imagine a world where you're not in my life, Rena." "Oh, me either, Ash. I believe everything happens for a reason and I'm just so happy the universe always found ways of reuniting us and brought us to this point tonight. I mean, I kinda wish you'd noticed my crush on you a lot sooner. but better later than never, haha. Ash laughed along. Yeah. Well, like I said before, I did sort of know. But I was too focused on my own things. And I was confused about my feelings. The important thing is that we're together now though, right? Serena agreed, and then they continued to take in the sights. They would be heading back to Kanto before they knew it, and Serena in particular needed to rubber stamp the surroundings in her brain, so she could remember it in all its greatness whenever she got homesick. Yet, it was getting quite late now and their reservation time slot was running out, so they reluctantly walked back inside. Serena looked back one last time and was content. Then Ash paid for the food and they left the restaurant. Ash asked if there was anything else Serena wanted to do while they were out, but Serena was only interested in one thing now. All she wanted to do now was spend the rest of her birthday with Ash, back in their room. And she got her wish, as Ash happily escorted her back to the hotel. Ash used the keycard to enter their room and they both sat down on the bed. Serena thanked Ash for letting her wear his blazer and asked Ash to take it off for her. As he did, Ash stared at the back of her neck, all the way down to her shoulders and the zip at the back of her dress. Serena looked behind her and caught him staring this time. Hey, what are you staring at? Ash quickly looked away guiltily. Oh, and nothing. Just zoned out. Like last time I was in a dress like this, huh? Ash mumbled something and looked a little befuddled, a little surprised Serena remembered that. Well, do you like what you see? Serena wasn't letting it go. She really wanted to know if her new dress was turning him on. Yeah. You have really nice, skin. Serena laughed. Oh, you can do better than that, Ash. I mean, you were staring at my back for quite a while there. Something catch your eye? Serena winked. Why yeah. I just remembered when I helped zip you up before the grand final, and how beautiful you looked. I really wanted to wrap my hands around you then, to be honest. Oh, really? Well, you've got a chance now. I mean, I didn't wear this dress just for the occasion, you know. Oh. Serena bit her tongue naughtily. Oh, indeed. Just then, Serena got a devilish idea and started rubbing her neck and wincing a little. Ash wondered if that was some kind of signal for something and scratched his head. Serena didn't have time for him to figure it out though. She looked back at him and gave him a look as if to say, well, are you gonna do something about that? Need some help there? Serena nodded empathically. Ash took a deep breath and slowly placed his hands on Serena's shoulder blades and used his thumbs to massage her neck. Oh, yeah. Right there, Ash. My neck is killing me, lied Serena. Ash continued to soothe Serena's discomfort, and then that feeling from that night in June raced through him instantly. He grunted hard, like he had just been possessed by something out of nowhere, and impulsively started kissing her neck. Oh, Ash. Yes. That's the stuff. Keep going, moaned Serena. Ash was delicate to the touch and made sure to plant as many kisses as he could, in quick succession. He continued to do it, until Serena stopped him and turned around. Ash lifted his head back up and breathed heavily. Serena didn't give him any time to breathe though and pounced on him, pushing him back onto the bed and kissing him passionately on the lips. It was still her birthday for another 2 hours or so and it had been amazing, but she still hadn't gotten what she really wanted, and she sure as hell was gonna get it, in some capacity or other. They barely came up for air, as hands began to fly up and down each other's bodies. Ash and Serena hadn't had a session this intense for a while and it felt well overdue. Unfortunately, they couldn't stop their jaws from getting tired though and reluctantly had to pull away for a little break. Ash glanced up at Serena and felt a feeling he'd never felt before. He cast his mind back to Brock's words on his first day of work. I told you, Ash. Just relax and let it happen naturally. If you overthink it too much, then you're not gonna enjoy it. You just need to allow yourself to cross that threshold. There was one last quest to embark on in Ash's journey of intimacy. He had been desperate to cross the metaphorical barrier for a while now, but it never felt like the right time. Yet, as he stared into his girlfriend's sexy, inviting eyes, he seemed to come to terms with all the worries and doubts he had been having about taking the final plunge. It felt like a now or never moment and everything just seemed to be falling into place for it. Ash wanted it. Right here. Right now. He wanted all of Serena and she deserved all of him. And a familiar sensation in his pants confirmed it. Hey, Rena. Yes, baby. Serena stroked Ash's messy hair. I'm ready. Serena looked down at him with a blank expression, unsure of what he was talking about. Ready? Ash nodded confidently. I'm ready, repeated Ash, not taking his eyes away from Serena's. He was dead serious. Serena still looked a little confused, and then she slowly began to understand. Her lips gradually turned into a soft smile. I'm ready too. They both nodded in consent. Let's take it slow though, please, requested Ash. Okay. Don't worry, there's no rush. Serena got off Ash and turned her back to him. Let's start by unzipping my dress. Okay. Ash shuffled over to her and slowly began to zip it off. His heart started beating quite fast at the prospect of what they were about to do. He was never really usually nervous about anything, but this was something he felt he had to get right. Ash tried not to overthink it anyway and continued to undress his girl. His hands shook a little, but he managed to zip it all the way down, slowly but surely. Serena looked back at him. You okay, babe? Yeah, just a bit nervous. Don't worry. I'm nervous too. But if we take our time, it'll be fine. Ash nodded and smiled. Yeah, it will. Well, my turn then. Serena got up. What are you doing? Shish. Serena leant forwards and put a finger on his lips. Then she began to pull her dress down a little. She hesitated at first, feeling a bit body conscious, but she was too horny to care and decided to just yank it off in one go. It fell to the floor in the blink of an eye, causing Ash to pop his eyes out at the sight before him. Until now, he had never seen anything past a bra and panties, but now he could actually see a pair of squishy jiggly puffs right in front of his eyes. But they definitely weren't jiggly puffs. They were far better than that. Better than any Pokemon he had ever seen. Even more magnificent than winning the league even. Serena didn't stop there though and lowered her hands down to her red panties and slipped them off in one swoop too. She wasn't playing around tonight. Ash watched as they hit the floor and then studied the exposed area that he had always been perhaps most curious about since learning about the female body. Ash didn't know what to say and just mumbled a, "Whoa." Serena shushed him again and reached over to him. Her hands went straight over to his tie, as she loosened it and pulled it over his head. Then she began to unbutton his shirt. Once the buttons were all undone, Ash took it off for her and waited to see what would happen next. Serena paused for a moment and took a minute to drool over his muscular chest. She had seen him shirtless numerous times by now, but she was still enamored by how fit he was every single time. Serena bit her lip and then got the urge to place several kisses all over it and gave into it. She started at the top and made her way down to his belly button, until she found herself edging closer to his crotch, where a bulge was beginning to take shape. Serena yearned desperately for it, causing her attention to quickly move to his belt, as she tugged it off and picked the lock of what she desired to have the most, for so long now. Ash helped her on her mission and stood up to get his trousers off. There was only one more thing in her way now and it was very easy to remove. Serena put her hands on Ash's hips and began to pull, but then she stopped as she hit the pole sticking out. Are you sure you want to do this? She asked. Serena wanted to make sure he was 100% comfortable with it, before going any further. It would get much more intense from here on out. I am. Are you? Dead sure. Nothing else needed to be said now, as they got the green light from one another. They both pulled the boxers down at the same time. Serena licked her lips at what popped out. Now that is a sight to behold. Ash laughed nervously and scratched the back of his head. But it really was everything Serena had dreamt of and more. She looked back up at Ash and got up to kiss him. Serena was proud of him for finding the confidence to get this far. As the kiss ended, her hand brushed along his ever-growing manhood and then she laid herself out on the bed, spreading her legs apart gradually. Ash groaned. All his nerves had left and now all he needed was her. Serena rubbed her hands over her body, enticing Ash forwards. My body is yours to do as you please with tonight, Ash. I'm all yours. Ash climbed on top of her, keeping his eyes on the prize the whole time. You are so beautiful, Rena, he whispered into her ear. He kissed her and then continued kissing her further down her naked body, just as Serena had done to Ash minutes before. Except his head didn't stop. He got lower and lower and lower until... Bullseye. Contact was made. Serena gasped. Ash was moving much faster than expected, reaching the sweet spot in mere seconds. Serena would never have imagined it to progress like this so rapidly, but she loved not knowing what Ash was going to do to her and when it was coming. And she did basically say, he could do whatever he liked to her. He could do anything. Especially as unpredictability was always Ash's speciality, and it seemed as if he was taking it into the bedroom now. Serena braced herself for Ash's next move, and then she let out a big loud moan. Serena rested her head on Ash's chest and listened to his racy heartbeat. They were both sweaty and trying to catch their breath and couldn't stop smiling. That was amazing, best birthday present ever, exclaimed Serena, between breaths. Oh, you're telling me, why didn't we do that sooner? They both laughed. I'm guessing you liked it then? Liked it? I absolutely loved it. Can we do it again sometime? Serena giggled. Of course, I'm your girlfriend, Ash, and I definitely need this to happen more regularly, hee. Oh, same here. But, how was it for you? Was it good enough? Oh, Ash. You don't even need to ask that. It was perfect, okay? You had nothing to worry about. You were sensational. And I'm still struggling to catch my breath. That's how good it was. Ah, well, I'm glad you weren't disappointed. That was my biggest worry. Now that's not even possible. You've never disappointed me, and you just satisfied all my needs and then some. Ash smiled and pulled her closer to him. Well, there's definitely gonna be more of that to come then. He winked, and then they both laughed again. It went silent for a while after that, and all they heard was the ticking of the clock and their rattled breaths. It had been a long day and they were both exhausted, especially after what they had just done. They almost even fell asleep and had their eyes closed for a second, but then Ash broke the silence. Hey, Rena? I know this is totally random, but I love you, he said, sleepily. Serena's eyes bulged open wide and she sat up to face Ash. He still had his eyes shut and looked like he was drifting off now, but Serena shook him awake. Why, you what? Ash opened one eye and smiled goofily at her. I love you, he repeated. He opened both eyes now and crinkled them with adoration. Serena remained quiet for a few seconds and Ash's expression quickly changed to worry. Rena? You all right? She stayed quiet for a few more seconds and just looked at him with her mouth open. Then she burst out laughing, a little hysterically. Hey, what? What is it? Did I say it too soon? Ash laughed with her, but he was still a little nervous. Serena stopped laughing and collected her thoughts. No, sorry, it's just, do you realize how long I've wanted to say that to you? Ash shook his head. Months and months, Ash, and you just casually drop it out of nowhere, after we have sex? Well, I felt like it was the right time, so I just said what was on my mind. Ash shrugged and grinned boyishly. Serena shook her head in disbelief and slapped his arm playfully. She was almost tempted to laugh again, at how far-fetched this was, but now it was starting to feel more real. It was true and genuine. Okay. I just can't believe you said it before me though, but you definitely mean it, right? You have to mean it when you say it, Ash. Of course I do. We've been dating a long time now and I feel like we're at a point where we can start building a life together. You know, settling down, like my mom said. Really? You'd want to be with me, like that? Yes. I've never felt like this about anyone before, Rena. You've always been special to me and I genuinely believe you're the one. You always have been. Serena's eyes sparkled brightly, as she could barely contain her emotions now. Oh, I feel exactly the same way, Ash, and now we've made love, it feels like the final seal on our relationship has been tied together, like our ribbon. She put her hand on her head, to feel it still attached securely to her hair. Well, I'm fully committed to you, Rena. We're just getting started and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And that ribbon is exactly what binds us together. Ash placed his hand on top of Serena's, before they both brought their hands back down and interlocked their fingers. Me too, Ash, said Serena, shakily. Serena was just so overcome with raw emotion at this point and couldn't control her vocal cords anymore, nor her body, as she began to shake a little. Ash kissed her and rubbed her hands comfortingly, to stop her shaking. Then they resumed their cuddling position and just stayed like that for a few minutes. Hey, birthday girl. I hope you enjoyed your day. I was determined to make it one to remember, was it? Oh, I literally couldn't ask for anything more and I definitely won't forget it. Thank you for everything, mon amour. Serena stroked his chest and Ash felt himself getting goosebumps. He was hopeless at French, but he knew what that meant. This was truly what it meant to be in love. This very moment. Ash didn't think he would ever know the feeling, but his heart was still beating fast, and it wasn't because he was out of breath anymore. You're so welcome, and thank you for an amazing first time, and for being so patient with me. Ah. No problem. You're welcome too, Ash. Ash smiled and then yawned. Serena gave him a playful look and then Ash looked a little apologetic. Oh, sorry to ruin the moment. I'm just exhausted. Haha, it's okay. I'm tired too, to be honest. Gonna drop off any second, now. Serena yawned too. Let's call it a day. Night, baby. Oh, and I love you too. Serena brushed her hand across Ash's cheek and shut her eyes. Ash paused for a bit, to process a response. Even though he had already admitted it himself, it was still a powerful set of words to hear and comprehend. He decided a kiss goodnight of affirmation would be enough. I know. Night, baby. Sweet dreams. He kissed her cheek and then they snuggled up for the night. They both fell asleep smiling, knowing they had one more day in Kalos and then it would be time to return home. And one thing was sure. They would be returning as more than just boyfriend and girlfriend. Taking things to the next level had changed everything and their relationship was only going to grow even stronger from that night onwards. Tomorrow was the start of a very new dynamic to their lives together. The next morning, Serena woke up bright and early and stretched her arms out wide. She felt different today. A good different. Last night was everything she had hoped for and more. She'd always imagined what losing her virginity would be like and there was only one man she'd ever let take it and he did. And she took his too, in the most romantic way possible. It finally happened. In short, she felt like a woman now and it was a pretty big deal to her. So much so, that she found herself feeling giddy, knowing that Ash was hers in every sense now. The last piece had clicked into place and she'd be a very happy and satisfied woman, if she could get what happened last night on a regular basis. She smirked and turned over. Hey. Morning, handsome. Serena's smirk quickly faded away, as she realized she was the only one in bed. She panicked immediately and got up, looking around the room frantically. Where was he? He hadn't left her, had he? Maybe he wasn't as satisfied as he seemed last night, thought Serena. Did Serena do something wrong? Was she good enough? Ash. Ash. She called out, in desperation. This was an absolute nightmare, especially when Serena's #1 priority since Ash won the league, was to stay with him as long as possible. She'd always had abandonment issues too, not having many friends before she met Ash and everyone else on her Kalos adventures. There was no response to make it even worse. Serena anxiously bit her fingernails. Then she shouted his name even louder, but there was no response again. Serena dropped her head and sighed. Then the kitchen door suddenly opened. Ash poked his head out. You okay, Rena? Thought I heard you shouting my name just now? Serena's head shot back up instantly and she rushed out of bed to hug Ash. He was wearing an apron, but Serena hadn't even noticed. Whoa. What's wrong, babe? I thought you'd left me. Serena sniffled into his chest. Ash looked down at her, with the most serious of expressions and cupped her face in his hands. Now why would I do that, when I have the most amazing girlfriend in the world? I'd never do that to you. What made you think I had though? Asked Ash, very concerned. Oh, I just panicked when I didn't see you, when I woke up. And I tried calling you, but you didn't answer at first. So, I just thought the worst. Oh, right. I see. Sorry, babe. The radio's on in the kitchen, so I couldn't hear you. Oh, okay. That explains it. But what are you doing in the kitchen so early? Ash grinned excitedly. Well, can you not smell it? Serena sniffed and then looked down at Ash's apron and looked surprised. Wait. Why, you're cooking? Yep, nothing too fancy, but come and see. Serena had to see this with her own 2 eyes and didn't hesitate in following him to the kitchen. She was shocked to see bacon, eggs and sausages frying on the cooker. Oh, wow. You really are cooking, and it's looking good. Ash grinned again and checked on the food and prodded it with a spatula. Well, I must be doing something right then. How do you like your eggs, by the way? Scrambled, right? Why yeah. How did you know? Aw, well, I know you, Rena. Ash pointed the spatula at her and winked. And I noticed you always have it that way, when my mum makes them. Serena smiled and hugged Ash from behind. Her hands wrapped around his waist and she rested her head on his shoulder. I'm impressed you remembered, babe. But I also like mine with a kiss, you know. Ash looked back and smirked. So do I. Ash leant over to kiss her, but Serena put a finger on his lips. I've still gotta brush my teeth. You can kiss me when breakfast is ready. Ash pouted. Ah, okay. Well, it won't be long now. It better not be. See you soon. Serena looked to be walking away, but then she looked down at Ash's backside and came back to slap his bum. Ash flinched a little and looked surprised. He really wasn't expecting that at all. Hey, what did you do that for? Well, I just realized how sexy you look cooking in that apron and how nice your ass looks right now, so I couldn't help it. Serena shrugged and Ash laughed. Well, watch out. 'Cause I might just get you back later, he said, wagging the spatula at her. I'd like to see you try. Serena stuck out her tongue cheekily and snuck off to the bathroom. Ash shook his head and smiled, as he finished the fry up. He sure as hell wasn't going to let Serena get away with it. Not by any means. Especially now he was just getting good at the flirtatious, naughty side of their relationship. And Ash certainly felt different today too. He had never given sex much thought before he got together with Serena, but last night was truly eye-opening. He could see why Serena had wanted it so much now too, and he couldn't wait for the next time. He felt a similar way to Serena and felt he was officially a man now. Any innocence or childishness he had was long gone now. As he dished up the food, he could really start to picture life with Serena. They had already been living with each other for a while now, but these last few days at the hotel were special. Like a future insight into what it could be like to have their own place together. Ash smiled at the thought of it. He was just so happy with how everything had panned out this year, and there was most definitely more to come. Things were just getting started. Serena emerged from the bathroom, just as Ash began to carry the plates over. Serena got back in bed and pulled the covers over her. Ash joined her and served breakfast. He turned on the TV and started eating, but Serena gave him a look. What? He said, with a mouthful of bacon. Ahem, aren't you forgetting something? Serena made kissy noises and looked at Ash very needily. Oh, right. Ash swallowed his bacon and kissed her. Much better. Serena picked up her knife and fork and began to eat with him. You taste good, but this tastes great too. Oh, you really think so? Ash's eyes lit up, feeling proud of himself. Yeah, babe. Who knew you could cook? Maybe you've got a secret talent, joked Serena. Ash laughed. Ha, no, I'm usually terrible at cooking. But I've actually been learning from Mr. Mime how to cook basic things like this. I'm just glad you like it. Oh. Well, that's quite mature of you, Ash. I like it. Well, I had to learn sometime, didn't I? And if we're gonna be a proper couple, then one day we might get a place of our own maybe. Can't live with Mum forever, right? Ash laughed and continued eating, but Serena just stopped eating, with her mouth open. Ash. That's actually really thoughtful of you. I'd absolutely love that. And it's actually kinda hot that you're thinking so forward like that. Serena bit her tongue and was looking a little turned on. Ash noticed it immediately and stopped eating too. Oh, yeah? Oh, yes baby. They studied each other's eyes and lips for a good 30 seconds, before grabbing each other firmly and making out softly. As their lips intertwined, they could hear a faint song coming from the radio in the kitchen. They broke apart a little and opened their eyes slowly, listening to the song seep through to them. 'Cause I played it cool when I was scared of letting go. I know I needed you but I never showed, but I wanna stay with you until we're gray and old. Just say you won't let go, just say you won't let go. I'll wake you up with some breakfast in bed, I'll bring you coffee with a kiss on your head. At this moment, they both knew what this was. What was happening? What was coming? There was no turning back at this point. They were in too deep. Even Ash was completely enchanted by the effects of Cupid now. It was always going to take him some time to feel this way, but he couldn't stop falling in love with Serena, even if he tried. She just had something no other girl he had met before would ever amount to for him. And even though he didn't really know it at the time, there was so much more behind that phone call he made to her 2 years ago. The fact of the matter was, he needed her back beside him and he was the best version himself whenever she was. 2 years later, everything had changed. But so many things were still the same as before too. They just needed each other more than they ever knew. Staying together had always been paramount to both of them and nothing was going to keep them apart now. The song continued. I'm so in love with you and I hope you know, darling, your love is more than worth its weight in gold. We've come so far, my dear, look how we've grown and I want to stay with you until we're gray and old. Just say you won't let go, just say you won't let go. Ash and Serena unlocked their eyes and finished their food. When they were done, they put their plates on the floor and cozied up together. All they wanted to do was cuddle all day, until they had to leave. They got back under the covers and found something good to watch. Ash looked over at Serena and grinned cheekily. Hey, Rena. Yes, my love. Love you. Serena grinned back and shook her head, still not quite over last night. But she had to admit that Ash's random, I love yous, were pretty sweet and music to her ears. Ah. Love you too, babe. Serena squeezed Ash's hand and allowed herself to fall into his arms for the day. As it was still her birthday weekend, Ash asked what she wanted to do for their last day in Kalos. But Serena was still processing what transpired yesterday and was quite tired from it all, so she preferred to just relax until they had to fly back. Though, they did go out briefly for lunch and to take in the sights one last time. A few little girls even recognized Serena while they were out and asked her for an autograph. She had clearly made a positive impact on them and Ash was proud to see it. Whereas, Serena was mainly just amazed that she could inspire such young minds. She had always hoped that her performances would not just be enjoyed, but also remembered. Her dream for years was to entertain and put on a show, and this was proof that she was a generational performer. Serena felt like she had really achieved something spectacular and worthwhile. But she didn't have much time to reflect on it, as their time in Kalos was nearing an end now. Typically, the days zoomed by and they both found themselves wanting to stay a little longer, but Ash still had a job to return to. Their flight was for 4 o'clock and it was now nearing 3:30. Ash asked Bonnie and Clement to meet them at the airport before they went. And so they all stood at the very same spot as before, once more. It was a familiar feeling, but this time Serena truly was the best version of herself, so she wasn't really leaving this time. Kalos would always be her home and she was sure they would return again someday. The first time she left, she hadn't really found herself, but she most definitely had now and it almost felt like she had come full circle. So, I guess this is goodbye again, moped Bonnie. Yeah. Sorry, kiddo, said Ash, ruffling her hair. You know you can always come visit us anytime though. Bonnie nodded and hugged Ash and then he turned to her older sibling. Well. Take care, Clement. Great to see you again, man. He hugged him. Good to see you too, Ash, and I know I haven't said much about it, but I really am happy for you and Serena. It's taken a while for me to fully understand it, but I can really see you two are meant for each other. I wish I could explain it with science, but I really can't. You two are just like a proton and neutron. You just fit together. And I truly wish you all the best. Bye, Ash. Bye, Serena. Thanks, Clement, began Ash. One day you'll get it. I'm sure there's a science-y girlfriend out there for you too. Ash pulled him into a hug and laughed heartily. Well, I'm a bit too focused on my current project right now. But, yeah. Maybe, haha. Ash gave him one last pat on the back and then tipped his hat to him. Serena came over to hug him next. Bye, Clement. Thanks for coming to my picnic. Look after yourself and this little one for me, said Serena, nodding towards Bonnie. Don't worry, I will. And good luck with whatever you decide to do next. You'll figure it out. Oh, and we'll definitely come visit soon, when I get some time off. You better. Serena turned around and saw Bonnie was waiting for her. She smiled and spread her arms out wide. Bonnie ran into them. Call me as soon as you get back, okay, sniffled Bonnie. Serena stroked her hair and reassured her that she would. I will. I promise, Bonnie. Good luck with your Pokemon training. Bonnie let go of her unwillingly and then all of a sudden, there was a battalion of paparazzi running into the airport with cameras. They shouted, there they are, and ran towards Ash and Serena. Apparently, they had somehow caught word that the Kanto Queen and a particularly memorable, recent league champion, was spotted in Lumiose City. They rushed past other commuters, in desperation to get their scoops, but Ash reacted fast and grabbed Serena's hand, dragging her along to the boarding gate. All right. Come on, babe. Time to go. Bonnie and Clement were confused and had no idea their friends were that famous. Even Ash and Serena themselves didn't seem to get why they were suddenly so popular. Bye, guys. Catch you later, shouted Ash, back at them. Bonnie and Clement waved after them and were met by a few paparazzi members, asking questions. Thankfully, Ash and Serena had successfully escaped them and made the flight in time. They strapped themselves in and had a bit of giggle at the sudden mad turn of events. The plane took off as they talked about it. What do you reckon that was all about then, Rena? Well, it seems we're kinda famous, I guess, joked Serena. Well, you are the reigning Kanto Queen, so it's probably mainly just you. Maybe, yeah. But your league win was still pretty impressive too, you know. You don't talk about it much, but you should. Ash shook his head. Nah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was great at the time and I don't regret all the work I did to get it, but it didn't really satisfy me for long, did it? I know, but still. Remember that Tommy kid? Ash nodded. Well, he thought pretty highly of you, Ash. You might not see it as such a big thing anymore, but it's who you leave your mark on that matters. Like those little girls who wanted your autograph. Exactly. I can't explain it, but it was just such a great feeling, to know my performances could have that effect on them. And you've clearly made an impact too. So, it got me thinking. We're not really doing what we truly love, are we? I love performing and you love Pokemon battles, but we've not done much since our wins, have we? Ash nodded slowly in agreement. Yeah, you're right. I really miss battling, and I actually have a confession to make. Oh, you do? Yeah. I love my job at the daycare center, but it's not what I really want to do, deep in my heart. Serena nodded. I thought so. But no one gets exactly what job they want straight away, babe. You're doing great at the center, though. So just keep going until you get to where you really want to be, yeah. Serena put her hand on Ash's knee and Ash put his on hers. Yeah. Thanks, babe. No, seriously. I'm really proud of you, and you've really made me think about what I want to do. I mean, I can't just stay at home while you work your butt off all day. Oh, no, Rena. It's okay. You don't have to. No, I do. And I want to. And guess what? What? Ash was surprised to see Serena so fired up, out of nowhere. I know what I want to do now, Ash's eyes widened. Oh, that's great. Rena, tell me. Serena smiled and took a deep breath. She seemed a little nervous to tell him and hoped he would understand it. Okay. You might not get it at first, but I want to be a teacher. A teacher? Yes. I want to pass on what I know, to future up-and-coming performers. A bit like when Palermo offered to help me. Ash tried to understand and encouraged Serena to continue. She appreciated it and explained further. It's a bit ambitious, I know. But I would love to set up a school or some kind of institution for showcases. They are becoming more and more popular by the day, but they're not as big as the Pokemon leagues or contests. So, I'd love to have an influence on little girls growing up, when they decide what they want to do. Especially because I've never really known where I'm going in life myself and I really wish I had someone in the Pokemon world to look up to, growing up. Ash nodded in understanding. So, what do you think? Well, it's not what I expected. But it's actually you. And it is ambitious, yeah. But there's nothing you can't do if you put your mind to it. And whatever you do, I'll be right beside you, to support you every step of the way. Ash's eyes burned with determination. Thanks, Ash. I can always count on you. She leaned over to kiss him. And, yes. You're right. But realistically, like I said, you never get what you want straight away. So, I thought I could start off by working at the local bakery. If there's anything I love almost as much as showcases, it's baking. So when we get back, I'm going to apply for it. Ash's cheeks rose high in a wide smile and he put his arm around Serena. Oh, I definitely like the sound of that, he joked. Just make sure you bring home some leftovers for me when you get the job, yeah? Ash winked and Serena giggled. When I get the job? Ash nodded emphatically and gave her a smug face. Oh, you? You have too much confidence in me, Ash. Well, you are the Kanto queen and you make the best macaroons. So, it's really not a question of if, but when. Ah. You're too good to me, babe. Because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me and I love you. I love you, too. They kissed. Then Ash and Serena continued to talk about jobs and the future, until tiredness got the better of them and they fell asleep, for the last half an hour of the journey. The flight came to an end, as they touched down onto Kanto soil at about 10 p.m. They jolted awake at the landing and began collecting their things. Both of them were sad to leave Kalos behind, but they were happy to be home and approaching the hill over Pallet Town. Looking down over it only made them even happier to be back too. Their future was here, at least for now anyway. Where they went beyond here was unknown to them yet. But this was where it had all really begun for them, in terms of their relationship. Ash was eager to get home and grabbed Serena's hand. They ran down the hill with their luggage and as they got closer, they noticed Delia waiting for them outside, with Mr. Mime. Ash and Serena waved and rushed over to hug them. Oh, Ash, Serena, Mimey and I have missed you so much, we're so glad you're home and safe. Ah. I missed you too, Mum. Ah. Well, how was it? Amazing. Just amazing, replied Serena. Ah. Well, come in. Come in. You can tell me all about it inside. Are you hungry, guys? I've prepared some food for you. Ash's stomach rumbled to answer the question for him. He laughed nervously. Haha, yeah. I'm always hungry. You know me, Mum. Delia and Serena looked at each other and sniggered. That's my Ashie. They walked in and sat down in the front room, to eat and talk about their weekend away. Ash and Serena thought it was better to leave the explicit details out and left the sex part completely out of it. But as they talked more about their loved-up trip, Delia could tell something was different about them. She could see that something had changed, and when they talked about the meal out together, she squinted her eyes, trying to figure out just what it was. It had only been a matter of days since she last saw them, but the vibe was just not the same as it was. They were strong before, but they seemed to actually feel like a fully fledged couple to her now, instead of just two friends dating each other. And she couldn't hold back how happy she was for them and her son in particular, who was the happiest she'd ever seen him. But then, Ash said something that made her dissociate from the conversation altogether. So, Rena and I were thinking about getting a place of our own one day. What do you think about that, Mum? Asked Ash excitedly. Silence. Hey, Mum, Delia snapped out of her thoughts. Oh, sorry, Ash. Getting a place of your own. Yeah, that's great, really great. She looked away from them and looked a little sad, but she quickly smiled before they could notice and then hastily changed the subject. Oh, I almost forgot. Something came for you while you were gone. Delia got up to go get it from the kitchen, while Ash and Serena looked over at each other with half smiles. They both appeared to be thinking the same thing. Delia was always super protective of Ash, so they thought it could be a difficult conversation to have with her. But it would have to be had one day. Curiosity didn't take long to overtake them, however. Oh, what is it? Asked Serena. Delia walked back out with a letter and handed it to Ash. Then she sat back down and shrugged. I'm not sure. Better open it to see. Ash looked down and saw it had been addressed to him. He opened it carefully and pulled out a fancy-looking card. Well, don't keep us in suspense, joked Delia. What is it? It's a wedding invitation, from Brock and Olivia. He did say they were getting married someday soon. Oh, that's wonderful, chimed in Serena. What does it say? Ash began to read it out loud. Dear Ash and Serena. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Brock Harrison and Olivia Phillips, on the 14th of April 2024. It will be held at a small venue, in Pewter City, that is to be announced at a later day. Every guest is welcome to bring a +1 with them, if they choose. We assume you will come together. We hope you will be able to make it. See you soon. Best wishes, from Brock and Olivia. P.S. I would really appreciate it if you could be my best man, Ash. Please call me whenever you get time. Thanks, Brock. Ash looked straight over at Serena and smiled. I guess we're going to the wedding then. Serena squealed delightedly and came over to Ash. She sat on top of him and looked at the invitation. Oh, that's so lovely, and you're going to be the best man, Ash. That's such a big honor. She gave him a joyful hug. Yeah, I suppose I am. But what does a best man have to do exactly? He asked, scratching his head. Oh, don't worry, Ashy. I'm sure Brock will explain everything when you call him, said Delia. Yeah, and you kinda do owe it to him, after he's helped you so much, babe. Yeah, I know. I do. I'm not sure I'd be where I am now without him. So, yeah. I definitely will call him. Tomorrow, after work. It's getting late now. Okay. Yeah, agreed Serena. We should probably call it a night now. See you tomorrow, Delia. Okay. Good night, guys. See you tomorrow. They went to bed and pondered on everything. Delia on Ash and Serena's desire to get their own place one day, and Ash and Serena on the intimate weekend they just had in Brock's wedding. The next day, Ash returned to work and Serena put in a job application for the local bakery. And as promised, Ash phoned Brock after work and agreed to be his best man. Weeks later, Serena was successful in her job application and began working in late November and through the Christmas period. On Christmas Eve, Serena returned home with festive treats for Ash and had the jolliest of times, as a family with Delia. Their first Christmas together as a couple was nothing short of perfect, and they even had a kiss under the mistletoe. Then came the New Year and their very first Valentine's Day together. They didn't go as big as Kalo's this time, but Ash still made sure to pull out all the stops and took Serena to one of the fanciest restaurants in Kanto, in Celadon City. All the while, Ash and Serena's sex life was getting spicier and spicier. Whenever they could, they took any and every opportunity to get busy and try new things, all while making sure they were super careful. The subject of babies had never come up, but they both seemed to silently agree that it would be way too soon for that. Valentine's night was no different, as they spent a sensual, steamy night together in a hotel room. They had been at it for ages, until Ash rolled over, after finishing up on Serena's chest. They breathed heavily, with satisfied expressions on their faces. Happy Valentine's Day, baby, said Ash. Serena could barely say it back, as she tried to regain her composure and remained in a state of dumb bliss for a while. Ash needn't worry about pleasuring Serena anymore. Their sex was good and Serena never had any complaints. It was just relieving that they could do it tonight, without worrying about making too much noise or anything. And that was just one of the reasons they were both still very keen to have a place of their own. Ash handed Serena a tissue to clean herself up and made himself comfortable on the bed. Once Serena was all cleaned up, she joined him and they both just talked into the heart of the night. God, you fuck me so good, said Serena, finally finding her voice again. Ash chuckled cockily. Only the best for you, my queen. Well, that was probably the best sex we've had for a long, long time. Yeah, I know. It's always good though, baby. I always feel so close to you when we do it. Serena laughed. Well, you are literally inside of me, babe. But, yeah. I get what you mean. It's not just sex. It's passion and love. Ash nodded. Yeah, love's the word. Serena sighed dreamily. Oh, je t'aime, Ash Ketchum. They cuddled up together under the covers and began to assume their sleeping positions. Hey, Ash. Yeah. Thank you for an amazing first Valentine's together. Makes me wonder what you have planned for our 1-year anniversary next month. Blimey. Has it been that long already? Haha. Yes, babe. And you know what else is coming up too? Ash thought about it for a second. Know what? Brock's wedding, silly. Oh, yeah, that's come around quick. Yeah, not long to go now. I'm actually really looking forward to it, and I've always wanted to be a bridesmaid. Never got the chance before. Ash could see she was genuinely really exhilarated about it and didn't know just how much until now. Well, you're definitely gonna be a very sexy bridesmaid. Love seeing you in a dress, flirted Ash. I know you do. You practically ripped that one off earlier, she said, pointing towards a racy dress on the floor. You were so impatient, you bad boy. Serena growled at him like a tiger and Ash just laughed. Hey, it's not like you were patient either. You didn't waste much time ripping my shirt off too. Bad girl. Ash tutted and wagged his finger. Haha, fair enough. You just look too damn hot. Speaking of which, I hope you wear something nice for the wedding too. It's not every day I get to see you looking sharp in a suit. Well, I was thinking of wearing a tuxedo. Gotta go all out as the best man, right? Yeah, you do. And I like the sound of that. Oh, I bet you do. They giggled and then they just stared up at the ceiling for a bit. So, you seem pretty hyped about the wedding, Rena. Oh, yeah. I love weddings, always dreamt of mine, since I was a little girl. Oh, really? I didn't know. Yeah. How about you, Ash? Um. I haven't really thought about it to be honest. Never even been to one before. Well, I have. And I've thought about what mine would be like a lot. It's quite important to me actually, mumbled Serena quietly. Oh, I see. Ash didn't know what to say and went quiet. Serena could tell that Ash wasn't quite ready for this conversation yet, and it was way too early in their relationship anyway, to discuss it in detail. But it very clearly still meant a great deal to Serena. Well, anyway. We can talk about it another time. I'm tired now. Night, babe. Ash nodded and they drifted off to sleep, after perhaps their most romantic night since Serena's birthday. The next couple of months flew by and before they knew it, they were frantically running around, trying to prepare for Brock and Olivia's big day. As best man, Ash had certain duties he needed to carry out to help Brock. Together, they had successfully planned every detail of the wedding just in time. Now, all that was left to do was pick out their outfits and go on the stag night. Tracy, Gary and Drew joined them, and Serena, Misty, May and Dawn accompanied Olivia on her hen night. Needless to say, it was a little awkward for Serena to see Misty again, but she seemed to have gotten over the idea of Ash and Serena being together now. So there was thankfully no drama. But to her chagrin, Ash and Serena were a very popular topic of conversation with the other girls. It was an interesting night for both the boys and the girls, to say the least. But Ash and Serena were actually really missing each other, having never really been apart for a night before, since they began sleeping in the same bed. They kept thinking about each other the whole night and up until they got back from their nights out. Brock had taken the boys to the gym for the night, whereas the girls had a sleepover at the house. Both sets of parties stayed up late, talking about their respective partners and drinking their chosen drinks, while blasting some pop music. Misty and Tracy were still single of course, but joined in anyway. Yet, it was clear that Ash and Serena were the most loved up of all the couples, to the point where they couldn't stop thinking about each other all night. It was only until they were the last thought on each other's mind, when they went to sleep, that they stopped. Tomorrow would definitely be an even more eventful day. Perhaps most for Ash, who was still yet to understand just how meaningful a wedding to your betrothed can be. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts and reviews in the comment box. Now I will see you in the next video.